All right, it looks as though we're recording, and yeah, we've got numbers, and we're rolling, and it's a Cleveland Moto podcast.
All right.
So, perfect. Thank you, Oscar. To my immediately left, by the way, small podcast tonight. Got only 5 guys here.
Cozy cast.
Cozy cast. I like that. To my left,
Nick.
and Nick.
Oh, I rode my Vespa.
Your Vespa.
Not here.
I saw a picture of you, a handlebar type picture of your Vespa. Was that a Phil Waters captured in flight photograph?
Well, as a stoplight.
So okay.
With toilet paper. With toilet paper at his feet.
I ran to buy toilet paper.
Yeah, you were
perfect-
using your Vespa as the utility vehicle that it's meant to be.
Absolutely.
Dragging home toilet paper. Yep. That's cool. And how many rolls can a Vespa carry?
That time I carried 12, but it could have definitely done the 24.
the 24,
I think.
yeah.
The 24 pack's safe
Yeah.
on a Vespa.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
I'll do that.
if you can squeeze your foot in there for the rear brake.
kinda-
Just
Yeah.
Barely tweak it. Yep.
Oscar, how you been doing?
Doing great. A lot of CT tuning. It's chooching like a charm, man. I'm surprised how
So
good
did you
that
clean?
bike.
We talked about cleaning the points.
Right. I cleaned the points.
Did that do anything?
The exhaust one was a little bit higher where it should be.
The exhaust
Was
point
the
valves.
the valve.
The valve.
The
You
valve
adjusted
was
the valves.
yeah. I adjusted the valves.
Yeah.
Not the point. The points were clean.
Okay. Did you clean them anyway?
I cleaned them anyway,
Okay.
and I
saying.
and I rechecked
Not the worst idea.
Yeah, and I rechecked the carburetor tuning stuff. It's tuning great. It helped a little bit on the low end.
Your stumble has been taken care of?
It's doing better.
It's still there.
It's still there.
There's still a bit of a stumble.
But it's so clean that it doesn't stall there anymore. If you just go
You just
for
whack
it,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I can even start it without even pulling the choke.
Oh, okay.
It's just second kick, boom, sit down.
Fires right up.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
it's pretty
great.
clean. And I already ordered the grommets for.
Well, you know that bike was
the-
abused and neglected a lot by the previous owner.
Previous owner was
so
a bit of an ass.
You're really just catching up on.
Yeah. The day after I bought it, I started commuting on it back and forth to the shop from my house. It was only 8 miles or 9 miles, Lake Road. But what I learned was that if you just pin the throttle, and if you just leave the throttle wide open, it will go 49, which is exactly the speed I want to go down Lake Road.
Yep.
And I made the Lake Road run, the Kessel run, every day at 49 miles per hour. But then it also became my winter bike. So because
Yeah.
the knobbies that are on
Knobbies,
it,
yeah.
and because there was a giant stainless steel box on the back that was good for nothing other than it was huge. And if you measure boxes by how many helmets they can carry, this was a 2-helmet stainless steel box.
Oh,
Well done. Yeah.
Big, because that plate on the back of the
Yeah, it's
CT110
big.
is
It's
a big
big.
plate.
Yep.
So I had to fill that plate up with stainless steel box.
course.
So I went to Sam's Club one day and they had Russian nesting boxes. That was a stainless steel box inside a stainless steel box inside another stainless steel box. And the biggest of the stainless steel box had casters on the bottom of it.
It was a Triboxen.
It was a Triboxen. Yeah, it was a Triboxen. And yeah, for like $49, I bought the Triboxen. And I was like, 2 of those boxes are exactly the right size to put on the back of 2 motorcycles I own.
Nice.
And they had the nice trap case latches on them and the armored corners. And that was $50 well spent because the one of them is still our hat box over here in the shop. So if you ever buy a hat from us, you'll see that our miscellaneous hat box
Remember
is
that
one
in
of the
corner.
is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
biggest of the stainless steel Turboxen boxes. So
Nice.
that was like, that's the perfect size for the back of the CT110. I will own you. And that is that's fantastic. Sleepy, what have you been riding?
The buddy every day, no matter what, going, whatever, doing stuff. I can't believe I existed without that thing, unbelievably. Of all the motorcycles I've ever owned, I love that thing. And it's one of the few things that I don't want to do anything to.
Right,
I just
yeah.
want it to exist
Oh, yeah.
and live and just do its thing.
Yeah. Just
Super
needs to
T quite a bit. But I did have a life-changing moment on Tuesday. This is in 47 years on this planet. As much as I've hated them and just disgust and despise them and stuff, I rode a Harley Davidson on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
this guy came up after work, and I had ridden to work on Tuesday, and he was eyeballing the Super T, and we just got talking, and he's one of those guys. After about 5 minutes of talking to me, he was a solid dude. He was like, he's been riding. He's a guy you could, he'd be like, all right, you can ride my bike, whatever.
He didn't have his head up his ass.
No.
Right.
He did have his dad approved, hair.
Right.
But
Exactly.
besides that, everything else was pretty straight.
The Harley helmet.
Yeah, Harley helmet, no gloves. He did have boots. I give him that. He had boots and jeans on. Which
Most of the Harley guys do the waist down pretty good.
yeah, the rest is up for negotiation.
rest
is,
yeah.
But he had a 1200 something Sportster, whatever. I don't know.
It would be a
It was
Sportster.
a Harley-ish looking thing.
It said Harley on at least 4 places.
Yeah, at least 4 places. I had 2 skulls on it. I was into it.
It's
I was
2
like, all right.
skulls.
So
You're like, I can handle that much prison.
you know what? I give the dude credit. He had pipes that weren't obnoxious. They were like okay, right?
Right.
So we got to talking and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, that's a twin." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I guess Harley guys can take a twin. Like as long as it's a twin,
There are steps.
yeah. So
Right.
he's feeling it out. He's like bi-curious at this
Right.
point. He's
That's
like,
exactly
okay,
what it is.
you got a twin.
Yep.
It sounds kind of potato-ish in
Yeah.
some ways, whatever. So we start talking.
If you would have said it was a triple or a 4-cylinder, you
He'd
never
have
would
been
have
out.
gotten
He'd
here.
have been out. Yeah. So we talked for a while, and he sees me loading all my work shit into the bags and stuff, and he's like, "Wow, that's gonna hold quite a bit of shit." I'm like, "I don't even have the big box. I only use the top box when I need it, so I only have the 2 panniers on the side." And he's like, "Oh, hi, let me sit on it." So we started with sitting on it. So I sat on his.
first step.
Yeah, it's fairly comfortable,
Rubbed your nuts on it a little
yeah, a
bit.
little bit rubbing, and I had my feet out front, and then the pegs were out there and stuff. And I have to admit, it was comfortable.
Yeah.
He didn't have stupid hangers. It was a pretty stock looking. Well, not stock, but like not molested in the way that like some guys trying to be super cool with
It
his
didn't
hand.
look unrideable.
Tastefully done.
Tastefully done. Thank you. All right. So he sits on mine. He's like, "Oh, it's got some weight to it." I'm like, "Yeah." And his bike is like substantially smaller than my Super Tenere.
Well, yeah.
But it weighed like 75 times more than my Super Tenere. Like when I pulled it off the stand, I was like, "Oh my god, this is a heavy fucking bike."
It's
Like,
called the Sportster Iron because it is made of iron.
yeah, it like literally had like this really crazy feeling. So we talk for a few minutes. We jump off the bikes. We talk. I'm like, "Well, listen." I'm like, "You want to try it?" He's like, "Well, do you mind?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, it's. I'm like, He's like, "Well, let's just follow each other. We'll go down." He's like, "All right, cool." So he took off, and I rode his bike, and I didn't hate it. I didn't
Right.
hate it as much as I thought I was going to hate it. And actually, I compared back in the day, way back in the day, I used to have Porsches. Nothing great, but like 944s,
Yeah,
right?
affordable Porsches.
Affordable Porsches back in
Yeah.
the day. And they had a slink to them.
Yes, they do.
So like their transmission and stuff, when you let the clutch out and you hit the gas, it doesn't just go, but it goes what? Like you get this like
Yeah.
little like what into like your gear or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably the belt drive on the thing, but the Harley kind of has that what like that slink to it as you like let off and kind of hit it and go.
Usually, it's just dissolving whatever rear suspension travel is there.
Right.
That's usually with a Harley Davidson because the way they operate, it doesn't matter belt or old chain, what have you. But nobody's ever put a lot of science and technology into the swing arm bushings
No.
of a Harley Davidson, and also the suspensions tend to be on the soft side.
Yeah. Well,
Even
so
in
kind of-
yeah,
I've
even the
determined.
Sportsters, the new
I've
ones.
determined that if I really wanted to become professional at drinking a lot and driving something,
Yeah.
I would probably get a Harley because it's really hard not to make that go straight. It's
Yeah.
like once you get up to 15
It
miles
likes
an
straight.
hour, it's just
It
like you don't
really
have to hold
likes
the handlebars, you don't have to do anything. You're just like you could be like scratching your nuts, looking behind you, doing whatever.
No, they do like straight.
Yeah, it's really good at that. And then when you hit a turn, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but you have to put some effort into it to get it to move in a different direction than straight.
You can ride. I mean, a Sportster in particular, you get one that isn't like a super low or something that's
Right.
been artificially molested. But if you get a real Sportster, they do get through the corners pretty good.
It seems
but
like it would,
takes
but-
a lot of effort.
But I was about to say, it just feels. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
not capable of doing.
Right.
Because obviously I've seen dudes. Like
yeah.
there's that video out there with the sport bike
That
chasing the
video,
guy.
everybody's seen it.
Yeah,
Everyone's
seen that video.
Getting
Because
the
that guy
ass end
spends-
giving out,
Yeah.
getting the ass end out.
He's drifting that bike,
And
in
he's a
every
quarter
turn.
millimeter from like dragging a frame and murdering himself. But obviously, if the rider's good enough, they can rock it. You know what I'm saying?
That rider knows that bike and he knows that feeling,
Right.
And he's not afraid to go into it.
No.
Seemed to be 100% confident.
He did.
Those
he did,
tires.
and I wouldn't be afraid to be coming against him in the other lane.
No,
because he was managing his ride, and we all know the video we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, he was managing his ride despite what we would all call chaos.
Right.
But
But at the end of the day, it wasn't an epiphany, and I'm like, well, now I have to figure out how to get a Harley. Like that didn't happen.
it happened to Cameron too.
Yeah, and so like at the end of it, we traded back, and I was like, I still have like 37 other bikes I'd rather have in the garage, and some of those are 125 cc's. Like there's not like it didn't give me a boner enough to even like chalk a Grom off the list compared to what I would like to ride.
Do you know what year it was, the bike?
it had to be like a 2000 something. It wasn't
modern.
It wasn't
Modern.
new.
It was modern.
Fuel injected, likely.
Probably.
No. But then because
the
of that,
Sportsters didn't get the fuel injection until pretty late
I
in the
got
game.
I got a little bit excited because I rode a Harley. So I was
Yeah.
like, you know what I haven't done in a long time? I haven't gone to Quaker Steak Bike and Lube bike night.
Oh wait,
So I just on a whim.
I wrote a bad check. I beat my wife.
Yeah, right,
kicked
yeah.
my dog.
Put on a thing.
That's
yeah.
exactly it.
So
Some meth.
I went down there and
Had a child out of wedlock.
no, I haven't been so unexcited about 1,000 motorcycles in the history of my life. They even had new, like 2018 Harleys there.
Yep.
And they're trying really hard,
Yep.
but they're still just the same thing.
Would you say how many? And this is Quaker Steak and Lube. This is a restaurant. What serves chicken wings?
Right.
And they made their place. They made their name as a Pennsylvania startup on the joke on Quaker State.
Is Sharon, PA, the
Sharon,
official
PA,
first
I
one?
believe, is the 1st one. Yeah. And the whole idea was it was a play on words for Quaker State
Right.
oils, and so everything is color coded like the old Quaker State oil cans, and it's automotive themed for people who haven't been there. They have gas pumps everywhere, and they have
NASCAR
Corvettes and shit hanging
yeah.
from the ceiling upside down. And if you're a local area motor related business, they'll call you 1,000 times to donate a motorcycle to hang on cables upside down from their ceiling. For, I guess, the prestige of having one of your motorcycles hung upside down from their ceiling. But their big thing is like a bunch of hot wings and onion rings and beers. And they have turned into, through a genius bit of marketing, they won't open a store unless it's got the world's biggest parking lot.
Right.
Because they do street rods and they do
you're right.
bikes.
Right.
Yep.
And every Quaker Steak has a street rod night, and every Quaker Steak has a motorcycle night. And you can't get near the fucking place.
No, like I got there.
And it's always a night that any other business would be totally dead.
Wednesday
Right.
night.
Well, this was
Wednesday
Thursday,
or
so Thursday.
Thursdays you were in the valley.
Yep, Thursday in
Yeah.
the Valley, and I get off work at 5. By the time I get home and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and do whatever, I got down there at like 6:45, and I had to park in the third lot.
Oh yeah, yeah. You
Like,
were
I
in the
was-
movie theater.
Yeah, way in
Oh,
the
yeah.
movie theater, right?
Yeah.
So I walk around and they have an AC/DC cover band with a
Yep.
guy that, if Chris Smith was here, I was going to show him a picture. Chris Smith was Angus Young
Oh really?
with a wig on.
Yeah,
He looked
that's
exactly
great.
like Chris
Oh, that's
Smith.
cool.
Great. The band didn't suck. I mean, if you're into
No,
AC/DC,
no,
they sounded like
Right.
AC/DC.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's 4 chords and a drummer, and
You got it.
whatever it is. Okay. And lots of skull rings and
Oh, God.
lots of leather costumes. And
How many booths were there?
there's about 20 booths.
Right, that's
20
what,
booths.
And this is the thing I'd like to call your attention to. Those booths go for between $500 and $1,000 per booth.
Really, because there was one that I didn't understand what they
Yeah.
were doing. So like you have SP Leather, you have like biker jewelry guy,
Sure.
you have all
Yeah.
the stuff that they're like, I get it, I know why they're
Your
here,
booth.
right?
Yeah.
There was a guy, some kind of bike recyclers or something, which the guy had a 1988 ZX7R, which was one of my first bikes back in the day
Sure.
that I had, and I was slobbering over it, and he was like, I can tell you're about 40 something because nobody else looks at
Nobody
this,
else
and I was
gets
like,
this.
yeah, all right. So we bonded, whatever it was the thing. But then there was a realty, like a realty company that's selling high-end houses with like this like frilly lady in her pantsuit standing there handing
How
out
that
cards.
works is that she has a contract that says that she's there for every show. So just like when you go to the big ass motorcycle shows, the IX Center, the International
The gutter
Motorcycle
people
Show,
are
stuff
there
like
or
that, the
something?
gutter people are there.
Yeah, right.
Because they get a contract that says they're at every show.
Okay.
So they're gonna have somebody in that space, regardless of who else is in that space.
There's a big spender in every crowd, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right,
I'm
right.
sure
Never
one of
know.
those guys has enough money to buy one of
And
those.
believe me, in that crowd, there's plenty of
Right.
big spenders.
So I'm down there and I'm walking around and like I expected to spend 30 minutes there or something.
Yeah, just a quick cruise
through. I'm
Yeah.
just seeing like what's going on. And, like I always want to be abreast of what's going on in whatever scene. and thing. Yeah, I said that. So it's
abreast too.
all the same stuff. You had
wanna
the
be
new
two-breast.
crew of guys with 36-inch front wheels
Oh,
on
yeah.
their baggers and stuff, and they were all jocking each other, whatever. That's cool. Makes them happy.
I like
Fine.
that they do find their like seeks like.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they self-segregate. So you see all the donks in a row.
Yeah.
And like, so if somebody is in a donk from like Columbus
Yeah.
and comes up, there's no question to where he's going to park.
No, he's got to
In
find
fact, if he parks away from the other donks, somebody will say, sir, the donks are over there.
Yeah, right. You have to bring him up.
Yeah, but we're in a different crew. Not
Right.
tonight, you're not.
Right. So Skidmark Garage was there. They had a couple cool bikes.
Yeah.
Like a Triumph that was well done, a bobber that
Yeah.
was like really well done. In fact, the patina on it was great, and I can't Like he really mixed in the actual patina with like new stuff
Some
that he
new
patinaed to make it look like the stuff. So he did that.
I draw the line at new patina. I don't like new patina.
The one dude, the guy Shovel Bike Works or whatever, he had a Can-Am with the Bombardier motor in it and stuff, and it was a cafe
no,
racer.
that's Can-Am Cafe Racer. He's been bringing that out to a lot of
Yeah,
events.
it's
and,
really cool, really nice looking bike.
really
so
cool.
that was that. And those kind of things spurred.
And
my
this is a
interest.
vintage Can-Am, by the way. So it's a vintage Can-Am, little tiny utility, maybe 250cc motor.
Yeah.
It was a dirt bike
Dirt
that
bike, yeah.
they turned into
Exactly.
a cafe
Yeah,
race.
and
turned
it's
it into-
well done. So like all those
Nice
guys
guy.
were there, and they were doing that. That was cool.
Yeah.
And then nothing. Harley. A couple Hondas, Harley, whatever. And then off in the corner, in the middle of this thing, which nobody even looked at, like I kind of walked by it, and all of a sudden, like your spidey senses go,
Yep.
whoa! And I looked back, and I was like, pipes, looks interesting. Okay, walk over, and it's a Kawasaki 900. Probably 78, 77, maybe 76 around there, and it has a turbo on it.
This is the one you sent us pictures
Yeah, I
of?
sent you guys pictures
It's
of
a
it.
sweet bike.
Now, here's my question, because I'm a little naive on this aspect. So I know that the 1000 came as a stock turbo in about
TC.
TC, right?
Yeah.
So did this guy add the TC turbo to the
Well,
900?
I can answer your question.
Okay.
I know the owner.
Okay.
I know the bike.
Oh, okay.
So the bike is a 1973, and it is a Z1. It is a Z900.
Right.
It is the first. So the bike itself, the chassis, the frame, if you look at the fork legs of this particular Kawasaki, there are no reflectors or fitments for reflectors. It is a single disc, a disc only on the left-hand side. It is a true 1973 Z900. In fact, on the side panels, you're going to notice it didn't say KZ900.
No.
It just said 900.
900.
Yep.
900. And,
And
then it said something underneath on a little
It's
silver
just
bar.
a dual overhead cam. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right,
that's
right.
it, yeah.
So the overhead cam. But now here's the trick part. The motor is not. So the motor is from a much, much, much later motorcycle.
Oh, okay.
77 or 78. 76 was that year for the actual TC, and I think they ran up until 1980. I'm not well versed on.
When I was
Kawasaki
trying to figure out what fucking bike that was, I was doing, and I think you're right. I think they went up to like 79 and 80.
Yeah, and I think that might be a Garrett's turbo unit on there. It's not the original Kawasaki. The original Kawasaki turbo unit, this is completely nerd shit. Nobody should listen to this. The wastegate device on the original Kawasaki was a square, a rectangular sort of monolith that hung off underneath it. And then the Gates style one on the other side. Yeah, if you look at the side, it's going to say like karate slice or karate. Yeah. On the side, that's a real
Karate glide.
karate. Yeah, and that's
Glide, yeah.
and I'd sure look that up. I couldn't figure out what the karate glide thing was all about. But on the other side, you'll see that the wastegate on is very much a traditional round automotive style wastegate that's on for the turbo, and that's a later system. So that's a
Real quick question.
Yeah.
Who is 781-7131?
Chris Smith's trying to do a call in.
Okay, that's...
Yeah, we have Chris Smith calling in live from Punxsutawney, where he's doing a bit of a rescue mission. He's been sent out by the National Guard and the French Foreign Legion together to save a badger, what has found itself trapped in the hole formerly occupied by one Punxsutawney Phil.
Is he okay?
So, is the badger okay?
What's the situation like on the ground there, Chris?
Yeah, the badger's been skinned and the badger's on the grill.
Whoa.
So, Chris
Yeah,
Smith, what are you up to tonight, sir?
We got him filleted. It should be another 45 minutes. But what part do you guys want?
Well, yeah, exactly. I particularly like.
I'm a leg thigh man.
Do you want the sphincter? What do you guys
No, I want badger loin. I want nothing but badger loin. Only the tenderest badger for me.
I have a question for Chris. Chris,
Yeah.
why didn't you tell us that you played in an AC/DC cover band? Because you were at Quaker Steak and Lube as Angus Young with a wig on, and it was very apparent that it was you. So I'm just letting you know that we know that it's you now.
Yeah, and I did a good friggin' job, so shut the hell up.
Yes. So, Chris, where are you tonight?
I'm babysitting my cousin's 4-month-old baby.
Oh, 4 months old. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quite a while till that thing ends up on the grill.
Who in their right
Yeah,
mind would leave you in charge with a 4-month-old?
Baby, right.
They must have been desperate, Chris.
Clearly not a vegetarian. The
Well, the good news is I learned how to turn on the dryer, so the kid's taking a ride in the dryer. Right?
yeah. So make sure you're here for next week's podcast, because one of the subjects of tonight's podcast was Chris Smith's CB450 Honda and what we had to do to make it run right, and why you'll be selling it soon. Dun, dun, dun.
Don't tell me that. I just want to hear about the Christmas hate mail.
I know.
There's no Chris Smith hate mail, but no, sir.
I gotta send more in then.
That's your alter ego, Angus. Angus, not so young.
Yeah.
Ow! Ow! You guys don't even warm up a hello stupid. It's right into the info.
It is Cleveland Moto. There's been drinks. All right, cool, man. Well, you got anything fun for us?
I just want to say a long-time listener, first-time caller.
We love you too, Chris.
Good night. Have a nice nap.
See you, Chris.
Cheers.
See you. Don't sit on the baby. And Chris Smith does a quick call-in. Yay! We like call-ins. Okay, so yeah, that's that's a much later KZ 1000 because you look at the heads. It's got KZ 1000 heads on it, and it's got the turbo unit. But here's the good news: is there's a guy named Joe Veal here that's kind of a legend about motorcycles, and he's done some work on that bike, and he also assured me when that was spotted, when you showed me those pictures, I freaked out a little bit. And
I did too. I did. I mean,
Peed your pants a little bit.
well, Joe Veal was like, "No, don't worry," because that would be molestation of a first generation, first year KZ or Z900. He's like, "No, don't worry. The original motor is pristine and it's in a box."
Okay,
Nice.
good.
So all is well because it is the chocolate and orange paint scheme.
That's an interesting thing. You mentioned that
Yeah.
because I've always been fancied putting that Druin supercharger
Yes.
on my 1970 half cast.
Exactly. Yeah,
But that's the way to do it.
that is the way to do
Take
it.
that motor out, set
Yeah.
it right over
Preserve
here.
that half-cast motor.
You get a fucking $200.
But you
We
know
threw
what?
away two of them.
You know what really hit me that was really kind of weird about this? So, like, I don't care. Like, I'm out there and I'm looking at Harleys and I'm trying to appreciate some of them. And, some of them, like, there was a 1948 Harley and I was like,
Sure.
I would ride this.
Of course.
This is awesome.
Right.
There was another one where I couldn't even figure out the controls. Because they were completely different. Like I was like, is that the foot clutch? Is that it had a gear shifter and like nothing on this side and one thing over here? And I'm like, okay, how do you ride this one?
Pedal clutch.
Yeah, it was like some 1937. I was into it. I was enjoying it. You have 1,600 guys and their ladies and stuff, and I was the only dude slobbering over that bike.
Right. Exactly.
A turbocharged, vintage
Kawasaki,
like completely ground up
Super cool.
restorations,
Yeah.
super cool,
As cool
badass
as anything
bike.
in the world. Yeah.
And nobody else was like. I mean, I'm not going to say nobody. I'm sure there was somebody else that slobbered over, but there was 15 guys around the 36-inch wheel donk.
Right.
Where'd you get it? But this bike was just sitting there, nobody around it, nothing.
Yeah,
And it's just like,
the Quaker Steak and Lube crowd is really weird. I was there the night they set the record for 5,000 bikes.
oh wow.
And if you can imagine 5,000 bikes on property, that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And they were managing the fuck out of it. So, from the second you got in, they gave you a location area where you were to set up in. And then they had people working everywhere to squeeze as many bikes into the space as possible.
Oh yeah.
So they could achieve 5,000 bikes. And they did. They got their goal. They got 5,000 bikes on property at a wing joint. That's kind of something.
And to his left, Johnny Mac.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, fuck
Yeah,
yeah.
I was waiting for a spot to say that. So.
Oh, my God. What you been riding, John?
Just a KLR. I took Piper for a ride.
Oh, yeah.
We went down to the playground. This, that, and the other thing. I took a first spin here.
Did you listen to the Misfits podcast?
I've listened here and there.
Liza
but
just
not-
got herself a KLR.
Good for you. Slow clap.
So
Is it a military version?
No, it's
Yeah, that's from the last conversation
Yeah.
with you I had on it. That's going to be very difficult to do.
yes, it is. Yeah, it is going to be very difficult to do. But based on she picked one up. She got a good bike, good price on a modern KLR, newer. I think it's a 2000 and
The next gen,
the
second
next
gen.
Yeah, next gen KLR.
So no doohickey need to be.
No, the doohickey has been fixed from the factory.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's going to really compromise Happy Trail's ability to sell doohickey kits. Little aluminum doohickeys.
Well, considering how many gajillion they sold up for that period.
Yeah, and if you do own a KLR and you haven't done the doohickey yet, please do the doohickey.
The
It's
doohickey
worth
is
it.
the primary or the
Tommy Cam Advancer. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and they're plastic. and they really shouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah. And turns out when they're plastic, they can break. And I have not had a doohickey break.
They're different. There's some. The earliest ones were plastic.
Yeah.
Some are they changed, but they never. The fix is that some of them don't go far enough.
Right.
Some of the spring doesn't go far enough.
Okay.
The fix is to buy an ape one that has a longer adjustment and
Okay.
has instead of having a spring that
Right.
just like a coil spring, it has one that goes on the shaft,
Really?
like a clock,
rotational clock
more of a
spring, yeah.
clock spring, so
Yeah.
it'll actually take up all the slack and a lot further.
Okay.
So it's and then the other the plastic ones were weak, so
Right.
it would actually crack.
I got a metal one. Yeah.
But even the later metal ones
Yeah.
didn't have enough travel,
Right.
and the spring would wear out before you even took up all the travel.
Wow.
Would bottom out. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've done the military ones all came pre-doohickey.
supposedly,
Yes.
I just did a doohickey adjustment on mine.
You did a doohickey.
It seemed to make a difference.
Oh, good. Oh, cool.
Like low speed, like when you're chuffing off, and
Yeah.
it's like that low speed
It
rattle.
doesn't-
Low speed
seemed
tractor?
doing an adjustment seemed to take that
Oh,
away.
that's cool. Oh, that's neat.
So I think it's still adjusting and locking down like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
I did a doohickey adjustment at work, and HR was a little upset.
Are you
with me.
talking about that whole thing where you saw the vagina and the thing of peanut butter?
Peanut butter.
I'm just saying, HR doesn't like doohickey.
They don't like
Peanut butter
adjustments.
doohickey.
doohickey at work. The,
Please don't
That
tell
was
me there was a
Chrome's
dog
fault. Chrome
involved.
posted that. Chrome posted the peanut butter vagina.
dude,
Chrome posts a lot of stuff.
he does.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does. So Liza gave her a review about her new KLR. So she's got a KLR.
I would like to listen. I would like to listen to Liza's review.
Me
of
too,
that.
because for a long time there was a lot of don't buy a KLR happening at that podcast and that group.
Oh, those guys were beating up on KLRs.
They're kind of beating up on KLRs.
because we talk them up too much. They're kind of
Yeah, I think maybe. I mean,
I don't blame you. I would do the same thing.
right? Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
There's too many people that have just refined that, but that's a really interesting motorcycle. It's one of these ones that
No, it's not.
No, I'm saying, but a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of people love them, obviously, but the community that loves them,
Yeah.
they just didn't love them. They refined them and made them
the
good and
correct-
shared things.
The
And,
correct level of sophistication for a KLR is a stolen milk crate, spray painted the same color as your KLR.
right, but they also, some of those guys have 150, 200,000
Oh
miles.
no,
on
there
them.
are.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The only thing a KLR needs is a new seat.
right. There's a new seat. Yeah, that's
Just put a different
pretty
seat
much
on it,
Yeah.
maybe some luggage, and there you go. Have
Yeah,
fun.
luggage is, as Phil said, the milk crate.
The milk
Yeah.
crate.
Yeah.
No, there's no.
But I mean, a KLR is not really super fun. I mean, it's like a Honda almost. It
Weird.
does. It gets 8 stars in just about every category.
yeah.
And it's
It's
nice enough. You can ride it on the
spectacularly average.
highway. You can ride it around town. You can do anything you want. You can do a wheelie if you really want. You
I've
can,
had quite a few years where the KLR was my not only primary ride, but might have been the only thing that was running.
That's where kind of I'm
Yeah,
at right now.
and I've had a lot of times where I didn't have an option. I was going to Chicago, and the KLR was the bike that was going to take me there. You know, and that's if I wanted to be in Chicago. Well, the KLR was there because the Vespa probably wouldn't make it. Right. You know,
Yeah.
and so the KLR took me to Chicago, and it's not by any means a great touring steed, but sweet Jesus, it will wobble. It will let that front wheel wander all the way to Chicago, and a 21-inch wheel at 80 miles per hour. It just kind of gets you into a rhythm. It's just, yeah. And it's like, okay, you go 76, no problem. You go 80, it's shimmy, 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 shimmy. Yeah, you could put a half a gallon of milk on the handlebars, you'll have a milkshake in no time flat. Yeah, it just.
That was with the good tires on it before
Right.
I got the Lego block off.
Yeah,
Speaking of Vespas or Vespa-esque
yeah.
two-strokes, I got my
Yay!
I got my pig back together and
Yeah.
it's running. But so to mount it, you have to grind some fins off and stuff on that Polini thing,
Absolutely.
whatever. But what they don't tell you,
It's the starter because
Yeah, you have to
because
clear the starter.
on the Stella you have an electric starter,
right? And it has
that
the-
was never been considered when the performance kit was designed for all of the older Vespas. What didn't have electric starters,
right.
And
I didn't have
then
to do
rather
that on
than re-engineer the kit
They tell you to grind.
to cut the fins off, which would be smart because you could sell the ones without the fins to the people who had, the regular flywheel. The
Right.
lack of fins wouldn't bother anybody. But rather than fix it, they just kept it the same way and said, you can have fun with a grinder.
Right.
It's
So
part of the ambiance.
grinding
Like,
at your $300 cylinder kit.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's the second one I've done recently, and it was no big deal. So
why did you have to do 2?
Rapid circlip escape.
Yeah, circlip escaped and ate the piston and ate some other stuff and stuff.
Aw.
So, but
I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know that.
no, but actually, it's the cylinder. So I honed it. I put everything together, whatever. But here's the thing. So what they don't tell you should probably grind is the other side as well.
Yeah.
Because I put everything together. And it's great, and I'm like, this thing's gonna explode. Why does it sound so awful? And it's running great. It's like I'm breaking it in, whatever. But the other side,
So secretly, Johnny Chrome and I were talking about your bike when you did the startup thing.
yeah.
We're like, he was like, that sounds like it's knocking, and I
got
was
knock.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like, he might have one of those Ceto Plus exhausts on it because those are
Does
kind of
knock
like
pretty
Yeah.
good, yeah.
No, I have whatever you put. It's like a performance. It's not the stock exhaust.
No, it's a Ceto Plus.
It's Ceto Plus, yeah.
They kind of have a like
They
a,
go-
they're,
they
they're,
get a
they're
bang.
cleaned
sounds
out,
different, yeah.
so you hear a little bit more of a tank. They're more of a pop.
Oh yeah,
Poppy,
blah, blah,
poppy,
blah, blah,
yep.
blah, blah. But so here's the thing. So on the other side of the cylinder against the frame, there is no clearance.
No.
So I can see it rubbing
It's
on it.
touching.
It's touching just enough to make you go like it makes everything louder.
Right.
interesting.
Because your frame becomes a resonance chamber. for your
Resonance
motor.
chamber for the thing. So eventually, when I
Clean that up
get
with
bored
soft
enough of
mallet.
this thing, and after I figure it's broken in enough,
Yeah.
I'll take it apart, and I'm going to have to grind the fins off on that side. Or
No.
just
They'll
leave
grind
it.
themselves.
No,
the-
don't grind the things off the motor.
All right, so as long as it's running, just let it run. And
Well, you've got a plastic cooling shroud around that motor.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
but that's on the outside,
Right.
and slightly on the inside, right?
Yeah,
but
right.
that part's down
Yeah,
here.
the
by
plastic
frame.
cooling shroud should go all the way around. It's
Oh, I
cylinder.
got it. I have it
Yeah.
bolted with
Right.
the whole thing. Yeah.
So, and if it's still hitting the motor, they're still hitting the frame. The correct answer is to get, a soft bronze hammer
yeah.
and start hitting the frame.
Oh, good point.
Make the frame. The
Fit
frame
the
is
motor.
very thin steel. It'll yield.
Okay.
And I know to regular motorcycle people, the idea of us bending a frame willy nilly, but it's a monocoque chassis, so
Right.
the
Pressed
frame
steel
is-
frame.
it's pressed steel
Pressed
frame.
steel frame, yeah.
And yeah, it's way better to just lump on that thing with a soft
Yeah,
hammer
because
for a while.
I have to admit, after it
Yeah.
started running and stuff, and I mean these the clips in are perfect. Everything's good. Whatever. I really checked.
Probably you got it this time.
I think I got it, but when it sounded like that, I'm like, this is gonna blow up in
Well,
5
it's
minutes.
probably
Like, I just
too
expected
only
it
making
to-
that noise when it's on center stand, because when it's on center stand, the motor is tilted in such a fashion. The back tire is lower than it would ever be, except for when you're in the air. Mm-hmm. So it's in center stand. The cylinder is actually interfacing the frame
Yeah.
Oh, a
much
little bit
higher
more
Yeah.
than the other way.
Whereas
It's that
when
way
you
and it has-
load the
yeah.
back tire, the cylinder comes way down.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't sound as bad.
When
I
you
guess.
sit on the bike, it will sound differently.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let me put it this way: I put about 50 or so miles on it. I don't
Yeah.
have a speedometer, so I'm
Only
guessing
500 miles left.
There's
Yeah.
only one way to find out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it,
You're only 500 miles
hasn't
of
it hasn't
braking left.
stalled and it hasn't blown up. So I'm
Just
like, I
keep
feel
your-
like I'm doing okay with
just
it
keep
right
braking
now.
I mean, it's not
Take it
uncommon
easy,
for
yeah.
them to sound a little bit knocky too. Mine sounds not, but mine was a blown up top end that I cobbled together and sanded with 400.
Frankenstein,
Yeah.
It was a scrap one, and I was like, fuck it.
And that's it. That's the thing with the old two-strokes is you can get away with murder.
But what was yours? They're not good till you've blown them up 4 times. After the 4th time, then you get enough clearance that they won't blow up again.
And that's with certain kits. So, like the DR kit and the DR kits and Polini cast iron kits were that way. That you'd have to heat seas them a few times. I hate to say it, but when you're into a Nicosil line kit, a Melosi kit, or a Penasco kit, or something that's Nicosil, now that's not the case. I'm talking about the caveman shit. Like when you're too cheap to buy Nicosil, and you're getting a cast iron kit. With those things, you would kind of, you'd go out and run them, and you'd get enthusiasm would get away with you, and you'd realize you hadn't broken the damn thing in yet enough, and you'd be like, "Look at them ripping!" And you're like, and once again, that sudden sound that makes you go.
But you know what's crazy though? The best a scooter will ever run is the 3 minutes before it sees.
We always said,
Oh, it's so good.
if
right
you're
before.
any motorcycle you're ever riding better than it's ever ridden before, shut it the fuck up.
At 1,999 degrees.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't know that the Bellinis were known to
Yeah, the Polini kits, there used to be a trick that we would do where we would buy a third oversize piston and put it in a fourth oversized barrel because that's how bad they were.
So, it count, yeah.
So they were
So who cares if you got a little piston knock?
they were so toit. I mean, they were toit. And the Polini kits were notorious with the 200s especially. It was just we had to realize that nobody was willing to put that kind of time into break-in.
So I probably did myself a pretty good favor honing the shit out of that thing.
Yeah, it does
to get the scratch out
doesn't
because
hurt
I
it,
put a good hone on that
Yeah.
thing.
No,
I mean,
it doesn't.
Which kit do you have?
The Pellini 170,
The 177.
177.
177 Pellini kit. Yeah, the Pellini kits are very good on the bottom end. They're very good. Their porting is really good for a bottom end motor. The Penascos are just a touring motor. You're not going to see a lot more top end out of them at all. The Melosis are kind of frantic. They're a little bit Jack Russell. The Melosis love to rev, and they do have a very good Nicosil.
How many miles are on your bike?
Before this thing or now?
In its history.
In its history?
Yeah.
About 3,500.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is,
Yeah.
stock Stella bearing, or stock Stella crank bearing failure rate.
I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say
No,
it.
but you guys replaced it.
No, we put an Italian crank in.
Yeah, because that's
Oh,
I brought
has a Mazzelli?
That's
So-
Maz in it. Yeah.
So here's the story. I don't know if you guys knew this or not. The reason I ended up with this is my wife works with a woman that bought the Stella.
Oh.
And she's not necessarily the greatest rider,
Right.
per se.
No.
And she rode it, whatever, and beat it up and did whatever. And
Sometimes the bike was even upright.
yeah. Yeah, it definitely crashed a few times.
Yeah.
And so my wife comes home one day and she goes, my boss is selling a scooter. Would you want it? I'm like, well, how much? And it was a pretty good price.
Because that's the other thing that John and I were secretly texting about was like, well, those aren't known for their bottom end.
Yeah,
bearings.
right.
So anyway, so I bought the thing sight unseen for like a ridiculously low price,
Yeah.
and she's like, "All right, you can pick it up, whatever." And so I'm riding it home, and this thing's dying all the way home, and I'm like, "This sucks." And so I brought it to Phil, and Phil's like, "Yeah."
His flywheel was orbiting.
Yeah, it was.
He had an orbital flywheel. So, that was not good.
No.
Yeah.
So it has a new crank and new bearings, and also the Kickstarter is removed because that can't be used because it's bent beyond all realm of.
Looks like a banana.
Yeah, it's
Well,
broken
then you're
banana.
well on your way.
Yeah.
You either want a
Yeah.
stock Vespa crank
All right.
or a Mazzelli.
Maz crank is for us. We just think that the Maz cranks and the stock Vespa
It's worth
cranks
every
are
penny of
Worth
it.
every penny if you're going to do that kind of thing. And that's a big. We're getting down to motor stuff. We had the benefit this week of having Joe Casola here at the shop with us for 4 days, and Joe's just an absolute preeminent motor builder. He is a Renaissance man. He can straighten your bent thing. He can rebuild your vintage Triumph motor. He can rebuild any motor. Nothing stops him. We were talking about the what was it? The original Cannonball. The Cannonball is for all the bikes that are over 100 years old.
Because he was a guest star on the podcast at one time.
He was a guest star on the
Yeah.
podcast, and yes, he has cast pistons on the side of the road.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
I don't believe it.
he's that guy, right? So he's kind of a cool guy to have around. And so, as luck would have it, he's entertaining the company of a young lady in the Cleveland area. So when she's at work, he's got nothing better to do than to come and fix bikes. Fantastic. Yeah. So Joe's been working at the shop for the past few days.
Cool.
And having Joe around is always great because the text message starts with, whatever bike you have at your shop that you can't stand working on and has jammed you up and you hate, I will work on that bike.
Yeah.
I will work on that bike.
That's
So, yeah.
great way. That's a great icebreaker.
Yeah, it is. So he's putting back together again a 1968 Moto Guzzi V7 that we had. And we were replacing the cylinders for the customer because the insides of the cylinders were letting go and they were flaking off and looking really bad inside. So we had to replace the barrels. And so we ordered them up some fresh barrels. And Joe, through being Joe, decided to take the items that were deemed by the customer to be fine and completely usable. I just want the new cylinders.
You don't get to make that decision.
Exactly. And this is what I want to talk about in our podcast. This is the tech portion of our podcast. And I learned something from Joe, and that is that anytime a bike comes in, 1983 Suzuki GS, or any of these bikes that we see way too many of, that are coming and darkening our door because every other shop in Cleveland has told them to fuck off, and here we are. So he's got a great policy down there in Tennessee, and that is, the hell with talking about a carburetor cleaning, the hell about talking about anything. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to charge you $100 for, or he charged $80 for a compression check and leak down check. What a fucking great idea. Because we don't currently do that. And by God, we should. Because as luck would have it, while working on a Honda CB450 in the back of our shop, he discovered that the right cylinder had about 60 psi. And this is a bike that rode in here. So we would not think, the customer would not call to our attention the fact that he was running on one cylinder. But maybe the customer didn't know. The customer calls to our attention, it's coughing or backfiring or what have you, and gives symptoms that are clearly straight up with an electronic problem or that. But before you do any goddamn thing, so if you are the type of guy that likes to work on older motorcycles and you're thinking about working on an older motorcycle and it has multiple cylinders, well, even if it has one, step one, page one, day one, compression and leak down test. Because, as luck would have it, when he was putting together this vintage Moto Guzzi that was sold by the customer, once again, I believe in the Dr. House rule of customer relations. The customer always lies. Whether or not they know they're lying, but they're giving you bad information. They're giving you their picture.
They may well believe they're lying.
They may believe they're lying. They may believe that the cheapest option is the best option for them. But they're not going to come out and tell you straight up, oh, I just have no fucking idea what's going on.
I think it's because something compression related is very big and scary and expensive, and so they think, oh well, if the carburetors are cleaned, it's not going to get worse.
It might be a valve
that's true
adjustment,
too,
Right.
yeah.
That's exactly it. Right. Yeah. And so that's a big thing. So if you're going to work on a motorcycle, or if you're going to buy a motorcycle, or you're going to have some work done on your motorcycle, it's not hard to check the compression. It's really damn easy. And the first thing you can do is start with a good compression gauge. If your local auto parts, if you don't own one already, your local auto parts shop does lend tools, and sometimes they will loan a compression gauge. Once you get your compression gauge, the secret that people will kind of screw up is...
My preferred... Let's talk about compression gauges.
Yes, please.
The preferred one is the one... You have one at the shop here that just has the rubber tips on it.
So there's the rubber tip and there's the threaded kind.
So you take the spark plug out.
Yep.
You jam that bad boy with the rubber tip.
Yep.
It's a tapered rubber tip.
Tapered
It
rubber
goes
tip.
in the spark plug hole.
Yep.
Kick it. Your preferred method is
5 kicks,
5 kicks,
wide open throttle,
wide open
wet
throttle,
cylinder.
wet cylinder.
So fuel tap off, spray some WD or anything in there that's a light lubricant. We don't want you to run your cylinder dry. I'm not saying that you should do that, even though for this application it really doesn't matter. But a lightly wet cylinder. And you don't want to have like all kinds of fluid in there. That's not our goal. Our goal is to just give it a quick waft of some sort of lubricant. And then wide open throttle and give it the equivalent of 5 kicks.
Don't hit the electric starter.
If you don't have a
If you don't have a
Kickstarter,
Kickstarter, you have no choice.
if you don't have a Kickstarter, you have no choice. Make sure the fuel tap's turned off if you can, because we don't need to add moisture to the
You
situation.
probably want to take both spark plug caps and both spark plugs out, so
Yep.
you don't start it on one cylinder.
You got it.
So
Make sure that you
good
don't
call.
accidentally fire that fucker up, because that will probably cause
Make
you
sure
to have to
the
buy a
kill
compression
switch
gauge.
shut off and stuff.
Yeah, the kill switch is off. But yeah, I don't. I've seen people do compression tests which were the equivalent of one dugga dugga, and you can't have that. It's got to be 5 fast kicks or a good charge on the battery.
I mean, theoretically,
and
what if I turned it over? I kicked it 20 times. It's
Usually-
only going to reach a
it's
max.
the max,
maximum.
right?
Yeah, it's only going to reach that. But what we have learned is there will be a point where that number starts to climb and give you an artificially high number.
Okay.
And you don't want that. You don't want to go into the situation going, oh, well. And remember, in a multi-cylinder bike, the most important thing is the disparity between different cylinders.
Well, that's you have to figure out like a bike sitting there not running,
Yep.
1 or 2 kicks, 68 psi at 10,000 RPM,
Right.
with a lot of pressure on
You got it.
the rings and
Yep.
stuff. Maybe it is developing.
Maybe
some-
it's enough to run.
at least
not enough to
it has
start.
enough velocity,
Right.
air. You know,
So if you don't have access to specs to find out what PSI should be,
Right.
what is a general for, like, if you have any cylinder, what
Go
is
ahead.
it?
it's mostly comparing the cylinders by
Okay.
themselves.
Across
So
each other.
If this one's at 120,
Right.
this one should be somewhere close to
Around
it, within
120.
10 to 20%.
If you got 3 cylinders, if you got 4 cylinders, they should be within 10% of each other.
Okay.
And if you see something other, and that's why it doesn't really matter how accurate your compression gauge is.
And so
compare
the
your
my thing
numbers
about the
against each
compression gauge was,
Yeah.
I like the rubber tip style.
Yeah.
They're super simple, super easy. You don't have to thread anything
Right,
in.
yeah.
You don't have a quick connect and everything. They don't seem to leak. They don't leak because you have the quick connectors. Anybody who's worked with an air chuck and an air hose knows that those fuckers leak.
Yep.
The one that just has a gauge, a pipette
Yep.
with a tapered thing, hold it in there, give it the kicks.
Right. The only trick is you have to be dexterous enough to be able to hold it in there while
And
you're
kick
using
it.
the starting
Or 2-man
method.
it.
Or
Yeah.
2-man it. Yep, that's exactly right.
What
So-
if it's a single cylinder though, and there's nothing to compare it again? What
You're,
would
not,
be
you're
a
only going to go
range?
by the book then.
Spec.
Oh, okay.
The
Well,
spec,
You're going to go by
Now
the
you're
book.
Well, what
gonna
about
build
this? What if so if you have
But almost any motor's going to give you 100 pounds.
Yeah,
Right,
if
that's
you're
that's what I was
anything
getting
under
at. I was
100,
looking for a mean because like
I wouldn't. If you have less than 100 pounds,
you're in bad shape.
No, if it's
That's what I was
99 or 95,
no, but if you get a 3-cylinder and you shove it in, and all 3 of them are 61, 62, and
You have a
65.
problem.
you, sir,
You have a problem.
Right. Okay.
You have a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah, you have a problem, and they should be, and you will see numbers that vary wildly, and that's why you don't panic, because we have seen gauges that I have handled gauges that will run 20 or 30 out and just be wrong, just wrongity wrong.
Right.
But we can use them to compare cylinders against cylinders. If you're doing the test on a single cylinder bike, then obviously consult your owner's manual. But a good rule of thumb for 4 strokes is you should be up in the neighborhood of 150 to 160 pounds per. And then if you're in a 2-stroke motor, lower compression motors, small 125s and stuff like that, you can see numbers as low as 120 or 130, 110. Widely held that small 125cc 2-strokes probably shouldn't ever be under 90 or 100. You will find that if you kick a bike 500 times and that fucker won't start, and it's a dirt bike, and you go up and check the compression on it, and it's 85 pounds, that now you know what's going on. That is your problem. And that compression check, and then leak down check is a little bit different. So the leak down check,
and it's different between a 4-stroke and a 2-stroke.
Absolutely. Leak down check with a 2-stroke is actually really, truly is a leak down check, because what we're doing is we're inserting a given volume of oil into the cylinder, and we're measuring it, and we're literally measuring it over time to see how much oil leaks down and how long it takes to leak down past the rings, between the rings and the cylinder.
Well, you can do also too like an air leak down check,
Yep.
where you take the exhaust off, take the carburetor off.
Yep.
You actually put bungs. You seal
up the motor.
intake
Yep.
and the exhaust, and then you put like 5 psi.
Yep. Yeah.
You don't want to put a lot because you don't want to blow your seals out. And then you're actually testing the top end and the bottom end.
Right.
See if your crank seals are red or anything like that.
Old Haynes
At that
manuals are
point,
great,
why don't you?
'cause they actually
It's a
tell you-
2-stroke.
yeah.
At that point, take the top end off, and you've already got the carb up.
You're
You've already
there.
got the
Yeah, it's
exhaust
almost
on. You're
done.
already
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Pull the covers up and put new seals in.
A handy dandy thing for leak down test too. One of the ghetto dynamic ways of doing it was always just to take an old spark plug and destroy an old spark plug, separate the internal part of the spark plug from the ceramic and the external, and just run an air line into it. Okay. And then when you're running an airline into it, as your motor is closed and you have closed your exhaust valves and you have air passing into it, if you put your ear to your tailpipe and you hear air coming by, well, I guess we know that our exhaust valves aren't seating in that cylinder. If
Aren't you
we-
going to get a little bit past the ring gap?
very tiny amount, but it shouldn't be getting past the valve.
Right.
Right. The valve, any 4-stroke motor, when the valve is closed, it should be closed enough.
If it's
that you
going past
can't-
the ring gap, it's going into the
Exactly.
bottom end, into the crankcase.
You're not hearing it, but at the
You
tailpipe,
won't hear it
you will
in the
hear it.
exhaust. You won't hear it in
Yep.
the carburetor.
Exactly. And the other thing is to put your ear to the carburetor or the airbox. And on any motorcycle, even the Paramount to all, the inline 4-cylinder Honda, there's a plastic airbox that has an air intake at the top. And it is real simple to take your magic spark plug that you've now made that has the little air line clamped onto it and is running very low PSI, put that in the hole, and now crank the motor over to where your number 2 or number 3, whichever cylinder you're using, is on the point where it should be on compression stroke. Compression stroke, both valves should be closed. So in compression stroke, both valves will be quiet.
Right.
And when you have both valves quiet, that's when you can listen at the air box. You should not hear any air moving. And you should listen at the tailpipe. You should not hear air moving. If you're hearing air moving, that is the down and dirty ghetto way to find out that you have a leaky valve or a valve that's not closing all the way.
Right, yeah.
Bent valve, what have you. And that is the home gamer's way to do a leak down test. We're not checking at this point anything passing the rings of the piston. We're just checking at this point leakages when the situation is that the doors should be closed.
Right.
And you can detect a lot of problems and save yourself a lot of diagnostic. Because how many times have you been in a situation where you rebuilt a rack of carbs? Bike was running like poo. You pulled off a rack of carbs. You rebuilt a rack of carbs. You put a rack of carbs on. Bike's still running like poo. Right?
You do the air pressure in the cylinders.
Yep.
My brother was breaking loose a CB450.
Yeah.
So that it was seized. So they put a bunch of penetrating oil in the thing. They did the spark plug thing. You
Yeah.
put the spark plug in there,
Yeah.
put the air check
air
on
pressure
it.
against that.
This time, we're going to put it up to 100
120
PSI.
PSI. Exactly.
Well, we left it in gear. So when
shit!
So when it broke loose,
Oh, the back
it turned into an air compressor.
Yeah.
It started taking off
Yeah.
across the ship.
Because that was an air compressor. At that point, you had a 2-cylinder air compressor being run backwards. Oh, wow, that's super cool. And that we've seen people do that. Rebuild a rack of carbs how many times to realize your problem wasn't the rack of carbs. You get a dead number 3 cylinder. Your number 3 cylinder is not running right. Or it's,
But with two strokes, it's also the bottom end, too.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean? Like,
oh, yeah, you've got a seal on the bottom end of a 2-stroke that basically your piston is becoming a sealing surface or a gasket surface, I guess, for lack of a better term, that has to take your primary compression and keep it away from what will eventually be your secondary.
everybody
compression.
says there's no valves in a two-stroke.
Oh, yeah, there are.
There is. It's
Yeah.
called the piston.
It's the piston itself. That's your
Piston
valve.
ports. I mean, there's...
Yeah, piston ported motors, that it is not uncommon at all to find that you're leaking, and there are tests that that you can run. If you've got a crankcase, if your 2-stroke motor happens to have a gearbox, and you find gasoline where there should be gearbox oil.
My favorite one is is taking the flywheel up and turning it over, and then holding a lighter there.
Yeah, that's always a flywheel. Usually, a flywheel side seal on a 2-stroke motor is instantly evident because
You think
the
you're
bike,
just going to see the flame get blown out or sucked out, but every once in a while you get a fireball.
you get a jet ball, a jet flame, and that's usually if you have a 2-stroke vehicle that requires.
Dun, 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 dun.
If you require more and more choke
fireball.
to run your bike,
Yeah.
guess what? Your air fuel mixture is changing,
Right.
and you're chasing it. So if you ever require more choke than you normally do to keep that motor running, it won't idle unless you got the choke in a bit.
You're missing a seal.
Your seals are leaking. You're getting air into that motor from a place it shouldn't be, and then you're either enriching it out or choking it out. It's just two sides of the same coin. But that leak down test, that will really give you a good idea. I like to joke that the compression test is a very instant, easy to determine, will this fucker fire?
So what is our poor customer now with 68 PSI on his right-hand cylinder?
Well, as luck would have it, he had a stuck valve.
Okay.
As luck would have it, he had a stuck valve. Unfortunately, when the valve was unstuck, it was determined that in order to time the thing, in order to make the valves right, we were at full on at the end of the valve travel. And that meant his cam was no longer as big as it should be.
Delobed.
Deload. So he's experiencing
Locked.
cam delobification.
His lobe was locked.
His lobe had been lopped off, which usually in the case of these older
overheating.
motorcycles means that it wasn't getting adequate oil pressure to the top end due to the smaller passageways and the lack of oil pressure due to the pumping systems that were on motorcycles back then in particular. They didn't have a surplus of oil going to the top
The
end.
450 motor, it's a great motor and
Oh, yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Not my favorite.
Well, yeah.
I encountered a lot of things, and I don't know whether it's just because. And most of the things that I encountered were ham-knuckled attempts by people working on them or whatever, or you pull out the valve adjuster and the rocker fell off, and then they put it back,
in again.
or somebody dicked around and got the valve timing. But they had all kinds of just problems like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because of the engineering, but just because of what they were.
Yeah. I do believe that. I believe the engineering was spot on for the day, but I think that I've seen enough Honda Twins.
And a lot of people have said, and I've heard this said about them, is those bikes in particular had problems with running them hard soon before they were warmed up. Especially the early '60s ones, you know, like the Bombers and stuff. Like
you run them hard right off the tick.
They didn't get enough oil into the top end if you took off and jumped right on the highway.
Yep. And it is a thing too about the lubrication system on those, the pumping system, the fuel filtration system on those, the slinger-based technology, everything that they were using back then as a method of separating.
Those are centrifugal too, right?
Centrifugal, yeah, exactly. They're a centrifugal oil pump with a centrifugal oil maintenance system, like it's cleaning system.
Calling it a filter would be a misnomer.
No, it's not a filter. It is not a filter. It's what happens.
But it's supposed to recycle your oil. Like if you take real oil and recycle it, they put it in a centrifuge and they spin it, and they get all the particulates out
junk
of it.
Yeah.
And they will develop sludge. I've had to clean, like my Super Huck, I've cleaned some of them out, and they get
sludge.
Tar in
well,
them.
exactly. And they have to be maintained. They have to be cleaned. And the other problem is what gets past the slinger ends up in the tubes. And the feed tubes that go to the top end of the motor aren't big enough. They aren't big enough. They don't carry enough oil to begin with.
You're talking, Oscar, like, you know, that bigger than that pilot jet, but like a main jet is the oil jet size. Like, especially modern bikes, they actually have an oil jet in them.
And we're guilty in this podcast. We're guilty of being a group that doesn't really find a lot of love for the Honda CB500T. And if you get aside from the we're trying too hard looks of the bike, and you go to just historically speaking, there have been a lot of top end failures and a lot of cam failures on that particular motor. And that's because they increased the CCs, they increased the displacement of the motor without increasing the oil supply.
Just a big bore kit on it.
And it's basically a big bore kit. And so the problem was I don't think that motor could ever provide enough oil to the top end to satisfy the needs of the top end, and that's why they had the failure rate they did. And
which is a shame because you can buy like 200% oil pumps and stuff.
Yes,
you know
can.
what I mean? You could buy.
Well, as a result of people reacting,
they just could have re-geared the oil pump and make it pump more.
They reacted to the problem and they created a solution, just like we were talking about with the Doohickey with the Kawasaki's. There's a solution that exists and it's not expensive. The problem is nobody has done it. People haven't applied it.
But was that available back in the day?
No.
Well, and that's kind of the thing, right? I mean, they've
was
been abused
reactionary.
before,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I don't know that you can actually buy an overpressured pump for that particular motor. But somebody had to race it. Somebody had to.
No, they raced it, and there are overpressure pumps available for them, and there's also supplemental ways that you can drill. Yeah. So you can drill and plumb in external lines that go from the bottom end to the top end and give you supplemental oiling. If you look at any of the old 60s and 70s Honda motors, and we have a good example because my Honda CB400F over there has an aftermarket oil pressure gauge on it. And the aftermarket oil pressure gauge I simply installed by drilling into one of the blocking plates when the motor was made and manufactured, and they drilled the journals, and they have these castings there that are blocking plates basically, and you can simply drill and thread into those with a standard MPT fitting.
A lot of the Hondas, the right side cover that goes over, when you take that off, there's actually an oil circuit that goes through that.
Yep.
And you can block and, you can put an oil cooler, you can do, it's just, for whatever reason.
No, it's right there.
They run oil through that cover instead of running it around the case or something.
Would be I think it would be too dangerous to run it on the exterior part of the case there. Probably just from...
You're better off if you smash the cover and destroy that oil circuit, you just put a new cover on.
Put a new cover on, you're fine. And I put an oil pressure gauge on that CB400F because I want to make sure that when I'm running that motorcycle, I'm at 65 PSI.
One of the genius things that I saw in a Honda motor was like the CB650s. Mm-hmm. They had, and it's a dual overhead cam motor, where the lobes of the cam they had little cups underneath. So there was like a little cup, and it's hard to picture it, but
No, it's exactly what it is.
There was a little cup so that it held oil for the cam, like
the way the casting was set.
The way the casting was set, like it would after it. And it's again,
there was a real nice place for oil to hang around,
Right.
and just lay in there,
and the lobe would dip into it every time it's
go around, and it was really clever.
So even when you start on a cold start,
there's still oil.
It's got a little bit of oil
sitting underneath.
A little puddle of oil that it just has no choice but to be dragged through.
Puddle Oil will be playing Saturday.
They're a Midnight Oil Puddle of Mud tribute band.
Right, exactly.
That's returning. I don't, and that's that kind of deal where that compression check is vital, and it's that kind of an operation that's easy enough to do. I was joking today about one of our customers that just wanted to have a lot of tech advice from me. And a lot of tech advice from me. And I'm selling vintage bikes. And, I'm liquidating my collection, and we've got a lot of people calling about Super Hawks and Black Bombers and stuff. So it's a tough time to be me right now because I've just about had it. And I don't want another person that shouldn't own a Super Hawk to own a Super Hawk. I don't want another person who shouldn't own a Black Bomber to own a Black Bomber just because they look at it and they go, well, that's an affordable used motorcycle. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't own one, And that's where we really get into a bit of an issue. We get into a bit of an issue with dealing with that. And the one guy was like, well, I said, you should probably look up, what you need, the information that you want. If you're going to own this bike is something that you can find. Right. And there's a guy who's just the absolute end all and be all. And his name is Manuel. And his name is Manuel Haynes. And you should check him out. And I hung the phone up and I went, God, I'm an asshole. And
you're an asshole.
I did. I realized I was like, and I went.
About 25 minutes later, the guy was like, I get it! Manual! Haynes Manual!
Let me Google this.
No, I was totally ready for him to Google.
I keep getting all these motorcycle
Manuel Haynes. All these books.
He's a famous guy.
Manuel's the greatest guy ever. Yeah.
Well, you talk about tight cylinder clearances.
Yeah.
Like Bruce, and I've worked with some Yamahas. Yamaha's cylinder clearance. Like you bore a cylinder?
2.5.
No. Like 1 point, like under 2.
Scary.
Under 2,000.
That's frightening.
So that's less than 1,000 on either side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like Bruce has rebuilt those little twin jets where they're 100cc twin.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, take it out. I'm breaking it in. I try to wick it up and.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you got to run that thing for 1,000 miles before you can even start trying to.
Well,
and
how do you approach that? Is my brain has trouble breaking things in because I don't know whether I'm supposed to go shitty dinosaur oil and totally vary my RPMs.
Don't want to use synthetic; it's not going to wear out.
Or use synthetic and it'll never break in. I don't fucking know, man.
What do you expect?
I think I think part of that too, though, is depends on what kind of hone you do on a cylinder.
Okay, yeah.
Because the cylinder is what's going to foul your rings down and let them seat in.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So if you do a real fine hone, it may never, it's not going to seat in as well. So maybe back in the day when they prescribed
a lot of crosshatch
under 2000s clearance, they want a lot of crosshatching
and a lot of crosshatch
and a heavy grind, a heavier, I mean, like.
I mean, every one I've ever done, I've always.
But I told him, I'm like, dude, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because he's he's gonna run that thing screaming, and he doesn't have time to put. I'm like, I'd go at least 2000s, at least like 2,500.
Yeah.
Like
2,500 for me was always considered to be like a normal hone, and what we're talking about is, once again, not everyone here, builds motors, but your piston slides up and down inside your cylinder, and your piston will be a certain diameter, whatever it is, and the more that you run
at a certain temperature,
exactly, right, and that's why we get into differences between liquid-cooled bikes and air-cooled bikes. Things do expand and contract differently for air-cooled bikes and liquid-cooled bikes.
So you need what's called clearance.
You got to have clearance. And
clearance,
and squish. And when we have that, there will be a prescribed measurement for your piston. and then there will be a prescribed measurement for your bore. And Joe was mentioning, everybody can buy it, to buy a set of verniers, a set of calipers, to buy a gauge, to buy all these things is great, but there are techniques one must have when using them. Go ahead.
McElfresh's favorite rule of fitting a piston to a cylinder is this: that after you're done doing whatever the fuck you're doing and whatever, clean everything off really good with some carb cleaner or whatever, so it's bone clean.
Yep.
Take said cylinder, said piston, put it in said cylinder,
drop test,
and leave it go.
Yeah.
Does it slide completely down through there without hooking up or hinging or being bound?
Yep.
You're probably pretty good.
You're okay. Yeah.
Oh, so
If you put it in and you've got to kind of help it
If you have
squeeze
to
down
push
through the
it
bore,
down,
that's
you are
it's
going to
tight.
have a problem. Yeah. And
that's why my scooter is awesome, because I used the $9 Harbor Freight bore, or the hone. Oh, I honed the shit out of that
Okay.
thing. So it's
the bead home.
the bad,
Bead homes?
the
Ceramic bead
downside
homes?
of having too much
Ceramic bead
clearance,
homes work really well.
the bad side, and really the clearance you're looking at is your ring gap. If your
That's
ring
right.
gap's
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
then you're not too bad. The bad side of that is then piston slap. The piston will rock.
It'll rock.
That's when you start getting a knock, and
And
it's
you'll- and you can
but,
hear it.
but
That's
that
probably
bike will run perfectly happy for
It
a
will,
long time.
but it'll be a little bit slappy. And but when you are measuring these things and you're kind of checking it, you should at least read the owner's manual for the gauge you're using. And if you bought it from Harbor Freight, read the owner's manual from the gauge they're copying. Because the owner's manual that comes with the Harbor Freight gauge is not a manual.
Right.
It tells you where the batteries go.
right.
It's a manual.
Here's the other thing with Harbor Freight is a lot of times in the reviews online, somebody will put in a very good sort of write-up on how to use it properly.
That is true. Yeah. And
I haven't been disappointed with mine, but I mean, I'm not precision. I'm a shit show when it comes to some of
Well,
this
yeah.
stuff. I'm not an engineer.
Absolutely.
I'm not extremely fastidious. All I care is if that shit works. And
But you've done it enough times that you know what to look for and not.
I know that it's a problem if your piston doesn't fucking slide right down. The
And then it goes back to
Piston.
compression.
You got piston Pannoni's disease.
All right.
Yeah.
yeah, if you're buying, if you're spending the money on like a Mitutoyo or a Mitutoyo,
Mitutoyo,
depending on how you pronounce it, you should know how to use it. And it's not hard to watch a YouTube video that teaches you the right way to use that gauge for an ID and an OD measurement so that you can get an accurate measurement.
An Ini or an Audi.
An innie or an outie? Is it a Gazinda or a Gazauda?
A comment on us of being less than fastidious about compression checks, at least personally.
Yeah.
Because half the time, I've cleaned 1,000 carburetors.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't care. I
Right.
mean, if I checked a bike and it only had 60, I wouldn't care. I'd still try to make that fucker run even with 68. I'd still go through the effort to clean the carbs and seeing maybe, because there's the other thing too, is if a bike's been sitting for a long time, maybe it just doesn't have, maybe after it runs for a while.
Oh, it's a
ring
four-stroke
could be stuck or
especially.
something.
You can run into a situation where a bike that's been sitting for 3 years will come in and it will have
Whatever cylinder,
astronomically bad compression. in
whatever
the cylinder.
valve was open was letting atmosphere into the cylinder, and maybe you got a little surface rust.
It's just corrosion. And
And rust will bet in a.
rust will bed in the motor in a real quick.
We'll bet in
Turns
a
out iron
ring
oxide
too.
is an amazing abrasive.
Rings will reseat themselves.
They will be
run
just
them over
fine.
a little
Throw
rust.
some sand down there, you'll be good. But that's that's a real thing. You got to remember if you're bringing a bike back from the
And
graveyard.
a lot of the bikes that I'm buying for fucking song and a dance, not running.
Yeah.
If the motor's got to be rebuilt, well then fuck it anyway. You know, like it's not. It's,
We'll be there. We'll find out where we are soon enough.
Right.
Who wants to hear hate mail?
Haterade.
Haterade.
You need a theme song for it, like
I need a slice. Of pizza. I need to eat on mic for this.
it's not happy mail time. It's hate mail time.
So what is the Exchange FM when you're talking about like a .fm, like .com, .edu? We know all those, but then there's .fm.
Well, there's so many. There's .bike now. There's
Okay.
dot
I
everything.
think it's a made up. It's not a.
Fastmail.fm.
Yeah, something.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Batman?
So anyway, Jesse says, Phil, between the laughs, sniffs, and sharp sounds, I had a hard time not going deaf at your skills in audio recording. I will stop you now. We have no skills. We press a red button.
Well, honestly, a few of us have skills, but we don't have the equipment to use the skills properly, so we're using a small recorder.
Right, we're using a portable recorder, and that's
We're
what
going to
you
work
get.
on this, though.
We put 2 hours into this podcast, and it's grown to 2 hours.
It has grown into 2 hours.
We're not going to put an hour to set up for the podcast because then we'd only have a half hour.
Right.
I mean, hour to.
Right. The less time we spend making it sound good, the more content you get.
Right.
Nick likes that one. Nick's like, I'm going to apply that to everything. Do you want product or do you want quality?
Right.
Because I'm giving you product, not quality, product. Okay.
A lot of it.
Sorry, and a lot of it. Sorry, I just had to shit on you on the level of job you did on Harley. I could not resist. It was like listening to the forum arguments I don't read or reply to. You could have offered us the same courtesy.
Right.
But no, you
replied
had to
to this
grab
one, yeah.
my email and shoot it to me. Normally I like your shit, but even as someone wearing a BMW suit on my Versus, I find the endless Harley trashing to be tiring. I'm happy someone is adding one more ADV bike for me to choose from. If it's bad, well, I won't buy it.
Well, that's pretty much everybody's opinion. We haven't seen it yet, so nobody can actually determine it.
You can't ride it.
But we've seen what they produced so far.
It's still vaporware.
I just don't like the way it looks. That's all I know about it. The way it looks.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like a fucking Cylon.
And what is the lightest Harley Davidson that they made?
Right.
What is the weight of the lightest? The 883 Sportster Girl Edition with no extra stuff on
It's
it.
still too heavy.
It's still 700
Way too
pounds.
heavy, yeah.
Oh, I just listened to that podcast like yesterday, and I don't think we shit on it at all. Really, it was just
I mean, it's like,
it is what it is.
Well, anybody else that's not, I mean, like, here's the thing. It doesn't exist yet.
right.
So any opinion
We're
is
still
just
arguing
that.
about
It's an
unicorn.
opinion.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if we all went and wrote it and we came back and we said, well, this thing's a pig and this is why,
Right.
that'd be one thing. But right now, like, anybody that's not crapping on it is
Right.
just as facetious as we are for
Yes,
crapping
they
on
are.
it.
Well,
Yeah,
it,
so-
it might not even come out.
Right, yeah.
If you're a fanboy, you're a fanboy, and
Right.
you're just as guilty as we are. We are coming into it with this well-earned sense of skepticism based on, well, we know that the powertrain is going to be from India
Right.
because it's based on the 500 and 750.
Okay, let's each of us say something nice about the,
No, how about
the new
this?
Harley ADV.
No, but how about this? How about this? When it does come out,
Right.
and it weighs 512 pounds,
Right.
and it gets 65 miles to the gallon,
Sure.
and it
I
can
want
jump
100
a 12
horsepower.
thing,
Right.
and
I want
100 horsepower. All right, is anybody else going to say, like, we're not going to eat crow and say, like, you know
Right.
what? Wow, they pulled it off.
They blew me out of the water.
No,
Yeah.
of course not. We'd all say, like, holy shit, this is
It's
a great
good.
bike. Yeah, wonderful.
It's good.
Well done, Harley.
I would hope that we would give them the same amount of respect and dignity we would give California Scooter Company when we actually tested their product. So when we talked about it, we were careful because we always said we haven't tested the product yet. We only know what we know anecdotally, and the best we can do is hearsay and supposition.
Right.
But then we were able to lay our hands on one that had been ridden, and had been broken in. And we got to try it. And we got to give our honest opinion of it. And we gave our honest opinion of it. And we did the same thing here when we rode around a bunch of 300, 400cc motorcycles. It's fun to be able to actually have this firsthand experience with something. And believe me, if that thing materializes, one of us is going to go ride it. It's going to happen. And believe me, when it does happen, we're going to have an opinion. And, no matter what it is, it's going to be. I still feel strongly about you sold 155 motorcycles in India.
Right.
And that's not enough motorcycles being sold in India to justify what you say is moving production to India.
Right.
You're not selling them. I'm pretty sure that they didn't, because remember, the press statement was that those motorcycles built in India are for sale in India.
Right.
And we said, well, but aren't the ones you're selling here made in India too? And they went, no.
Right.
No, those bikes in India are only for sale in India.
Markup.
So you're saying that last year you only built 155 motorcycles in the factory you built in India?
Wait a minute. What if we were looking at this all wrong? What if that factory is primarily a black T-shirt making factory?
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's
the thing
true.
No, it's 100% true.
I didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
it could be just me making black t-shirts.
Most of the income at most Harley dealerships are merchandise, not
Oh, yeah.
motorcycles.
Right.
They
100%.
sell
I can
Well,
tell
it's
you
a-
whether or not it's the actual dollars of income, it absolutely is the margin.
Right.
So
We're supposed to be saying something nice.
No, we're not. Nobody ever said you respond to negative
That's
criticism.
sort of nice.
I said I rode a Harley.
So
this
the
week and I
negative
didn't hate
criticism
it.
about the sound quality, Cinch was already talking about. He's got some gear.
We're working on it.
Yeah, we're
We got
working
some
on it.
mics.
We're
We're
working
not
on
sure
it.
that's ever going to happen. We're not going to make it a fucking priority for you, motherfucker. But
No, we've been
it was
talking
talked about,
It was.
okay?
We were talking about
You've
it.
achieved your goal. You kicked the hornet's nest.
And on top of that,
And you got us to read your email on air, which we rarely ever fucking do.
and the thing is, I know there's a lot of podcasts out there. Like
Yeah.
you might listen to
Stop kicking the fucking table, Phil.
Yeah.
My legs are cramping
Gotta
up.
get another
There's a lot of
email.
podcasts.
I need a banana.
You listen to the
Leg
Jim
cramps.
Norton podcast or something,
Yeah.
and he's making money off sponsorship and all this
Yeah.
stuff, and they can afford to do stuff. Phil is kind enough to stay here after he's worked a 12-hour day and open it up to let everybody.
Only 10 hours today.
Okay, 10 hours. Either way, like there's no money being made. There's no so anything
No.
that, any sound quality that comes out of this is because we're investing, or you're investing,
Yeah,
or
we're-
somebody here is putting their money into it.
Well, I
and
certainly
that's
don't
it.
know what we can do about the laughing and the coughing and stuff like that. I mean, I get it, but
Yeah.
wait till this winter. If you don't like the coughing and the snorting and the sneezing, well, you're fucked.
Wait till cold and flu season.
Yeah.
When cold and flu season rolls in, you're in trouble.
It's going to be a
So
fucking
the thing
Robitussin
Sponsored by
commercial.
Diamond
The thing that attracted me to this, like, you know, like I said, like a long time ago I explained, like, you know, you guys saved me from a miserable winter. But it's when you're with your friends in a garage, nobody's censoring their coughing and sneezing and farting or burping or anything. You're hanging out in a garage, and that's what I feel that this is supposed to be. It's a bunch of dudes hanging out in a garage.
Hey guys, speaking of garage, would you be interested in a Cleveland Moto project? I've been having strange visions.
In the garage mahal?
You do say.
I do say. What if we could have a project bike? And I've been thinking about this idea of a project bike, and I rode a Honda 919 Hornet. I just call it a CBR 919 here, and I really, really liked it. I mean,
It's a good bike.
I liked it in a
They have
very
a good
unnatural way.
It's a good solid bike. Didn't they have a
really like
599 too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when you said Hornet, I didn't even. But in Europe, they have a 250 Hornet.
They
and
do.
stuff Like that.
Hornets
So
are all over the
I
place.
was pretty sure
600
you weren't
Hornets,
talking
yeah.
about that because I don't know what you could.
Yeah, the 919, and it's fuel injected. After I think 2003 or 4, they got some actually pretty good suspension put on them, and yeah. So what we're to go back to the story, the Honda Hornet, as much as I think it's delicious and it's fantastic, I found us a GSXR 600 that is deliciouser and fantasticer and cheaper because it's crashed.
Oh.
And
How much crashed is it?
super duper awesomely just the exact right amount of crashed. So for podcast listeners, to let you know what that means is the front wheel is apparently where it's supposed to be. It's not any closer to the motor than we would normally want it to be.
Allegedly.
Well,
you've seen the bike?
Yes, I inspected the bike today.
Oh, okay.
And there is a thing where short wheelbase motorcycles, shortened wheelbase motorcycles are not desirable. No. And longer wheelbase motorcycles are not desirable. And a lot of times in a crash, people hit the object in front of them perfectly straight. Mm-hmm. And so the bike still kind of rides. Mm-hmm. And it still rides. If you didn't see that your front tire was scraping the exhausts, you wouldn't know how bad the crash was.
Your turn would be interesting.
Right. They drop right in, man.
Yeah.
They follow a line like nobody's business.
Take a little ride on that bike over there.
Yeah. And there's a for real thing about, we've had a number of bikes that were short wheelbase bikes because they were just crashed perfectly. Mm-hmm. Like they went right straight into the back of a car. Mm-hmm. And it bent both fork tubes equally, or it bent the frame equally, depending on what kind of bike it is. But this thing's got 2 flat tires. It's been stationary for over 3 years.
That just means they probably need air in the tires.
Oh, no. And they're good tires. Like the back tire was just put on. And so the back tire's fresh as a daisy. We just got to wake it up. 3 years of sitting. And now this is a thing
Fuel
that's got...
injected.
Fuel injected.
It's either going to be great or not great.
I believe this motorcycle has titanium valves. Okay. So this is a little more exotic than the boys from Cleveland Moto are used to working on. This is not your typical, this is a 40-year-old barn find wake up. We may want to wake this one up real gently because I don't want to know what it sounds like when a titanium valve stem snaps.
Hi, Dave. I'm back.
I'm back. I don't think. Yeah, I think we're going to be real careful waking this one up. But I got my hooks into it. We're going to somehow manifest a title. It's a 2006, and I spent the day. If you want to have some fun, Google 2006 Suzuki GSXR 600, because the term gushing doesn't begin to cover what the news journalists did about this motorcycle. And they were all just like,
It was Viagra for the sport bike scene.
it really was.
Yeah.
I think that everybody who reviewed it, everybody who said anything about it, was just like, this is an insanely ungodly amount of power, and it is also refined to the point of
And
amazing.
what's it weigh? Like 300, 400
Oh
pounds?
yeah, it's
Like some
very light.
ridiculous-
Yeah.
yeah.
It's 600 cc's and all of about like 390 pounds.
It's
or
the
something.
motorcycle version of fentanyl.
It is. And it probably shouldn't have been released upon the public. It probably should have been what I like to characterize as sport-only motorcycles. Sport-only motorcycles are motorcycles that the operator is the worst thing on the bike,
Yeah.
meaning that the bike could get around the
Excuse me.
racetrack
Without you. On
without you on it, and it would be much happier.
And the thing that's sad about it is that it appeals to the biggest squids in the world.
Well,
Those are
yeah.
the guys that buy it.
And that's
so sad.
That has always been a dangerous thing.
Right.
I've always appreciated.
It's a starter bike.
It's exactly. It's a 600. Shit, dude, that's a starter bike. Yeah. I've always really respected the little 600s, like that Triumph TT 600.
111 horsepower,
111 horsepower. There you go. Yeah.
40 miles per gallon, 140 mile range.
Yeah. We'll never ride that far.
It's only a 15 out of 17 insurance group.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Which means in England, just hand over your fucking wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only, and it's a 600, yet it's a 15 out of 17 insurance group.
Mm-hmm.
So what that would mean is that it's the most dangerous 600.
Right. But
Or
the
the
funny,
most stealable.
but the funny part is like when you look at a 600, especially in that time frame, 2006 or whatever,
Yeah.
to the 1000s that came out, they might have 160 horsepower.
Yeah.
But what is your usable horsepower range on a street, even being a hooligan? Like, what are you going to pull? Like,
I still have a hard argument for anything over 50.
yeah.
Like 50 horsepower is more than adequate
Right.
to get most things
I'm just
done,
saying,
unless
like
your
these
bike's too
guys,
heavy.
like, oh, it's only
Yeah.
a 600.
Yeah.
Well, anywhere, if you're not, well, he's dead, so I can't use him. If you're not Valentino Rossi,
Right. Yeah.
what is the usable power range of a 600 to 1000 for a normal dude?
Well, and it has to be at 10,000 RPM before anything exciting happens anyway.
Right.
So unless you're riding around all the time at
Right.
175 miles per hour indicated, 163 actual
a 12-mile speedo variance
my.
at 170.
per this person.
How shameful.
Could have been a bad tire.
How shameful. That's ridiculous.
But yeah, but I mean, I always laughed about that. Like the difference. All these guys are like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to get 1,000. I can't ride a 600. Really? You
What-
can't ride it? I'd like to see you ride. I'd like to see you use a 600 to actually use all 600 cc's.
Right.
Well,
No.
the idea behind the stunting bikes was you'd build a cage around it. So you could do stunts and have fun on it, and then when the bike would fall down, it wouldn't be incapacitated.
Or the weight distribution.
Right.
Like for instance, like my bike, the only thing that I actually could ride halfway decently, the 900RR, that bike had a balance point that was about 52 degrees.
Yeah.
Anywhere in between those 52 degrees, the bike would wheelie.
It would wheelie.
Yeah. Where like, GSXR 1000, it had a 20 degree
Right.
balance point. So like, it was whatever. So
Oh, yeah. I think we have the technology that once we strip everything that's on this bike that's plastic off of it and get it down.
11.9 second quarter mile.
Yeah. There we go. Pretty slow in the quarter. But I do think that once we take off everything that's sharp that used to hold plastic on,
did it have any spikes on it?
no.
Oh.
It was remarkably stock.
Wow.
I mean,
Very
it was
nice.
it was super stock until it had been lightly modified.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, on both sides.
Organically.
I actually think that this bike, I think by the nature of the crash, it got all the left, a whole lot of the right, and most of the back.
Wow.
High side.
So he high-sided,
High side.
I
low
think he
sided, high
low-sided.
sided, yeah.
I think it low-sided for a while. And then caught
Then flipped,
high side.
Yeah.
and then probably did a blue green for a while.
Yeah.
And which cleaned it of most of its things that weren't bolted on. Yeah.
Does it have foot pegs at this point?
One of them.
One. Okay.
So most of the removing stuff has already taken place.
It's already
right,
removed,
yeah.
yeah.
Did all the work.
Yeah, it didn't come with a big gut pile. It just showed up as it was, al fresco. And it didn't, it really, when I looked at it, I was like, you know what, there's a perfectly good motor, a perfectly good set of forks. The chain's not even that rusty yet. And the back tire looks great. So as long as that front fork, as long as those front forks, which are upside down and expensive and hard to fix, you know, we don't fix those, you replace those.
The GSXR 600's radial
Tokikos, yeah.
Totico brakes are like running into a brick wall.
Well, I'll tell you what.
When you want to stop.
I'm going to tell you that I think maybe they may have had some assistance in that in that regard, because there may have been a wall involved. I'm not sure, but this was a gal's bike. So this is a
Do you
rider.
know the outcome of the Crash E?
She took about a 10-year break from motorcycles.
Okay, but she's still walking on the face of the
She's
planet.
alive and walking
Okay,
the planet,
good.
producing children. The
So
whole
it's
deal.
not a haunted bike;
Yeah.
it's just a crash bike.
It's just a crash bike. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's
There's
what I
no
was
ghosts or
gonna-
demons
yeah.
with this
All
one.
right, good.
Yeah, and
Not yet.
it was purchased as a used bike, and I have a feeling that it was I think the story was that it was a year or two old when she got it as a used bike, and certain parts of the bike were not factory; they had been resprayed. So I think the bike had been crashed once before she got it, and had been rebuilt
There's some history
and
there.
sold as just like new.
Well, the
Red
cool part
line's
is the
like
tank's not going to
13.5.
Yeah.
the tank's not going to have any testicle
Slipper
imprints.
clutch?
No,
Nice.
no, it does have a slipper clutch.
Squish.
I didn't notice that. Yeah, it is a slipper clutch bike.
355 pounds.
355.
Oh, my goodness.
Look at that.
At 110 horsepower,
Yeah. Well, there's
that needs to go into one of your little cars.
That's.
You should replace.
No, that would be 3 times as much.
I know,
horsepower
that's what I'm
as one of my
saying.
little cars.
Well, now wait a minute. Can you put a pull start on this thing?
Oh, boonie bike racing with a 600cc. That's interesting.
It is really interesting.
0 to 60, 3.1 seconds.
What?
What?
3.1 seconds, 0 to 60.
What's that?
That's fierce.
Yeah, but the rider was 135 pounds.
This is
Yes, and fearless.
Yeah,
and the drag
fearless,
bars
yeah.
were 9 feet long. Yeah. That is amazing. Holy shit, that's quick. That's nearly zero territory there. That's fast. I guess what I'm hoping we can accomplish with this is a bike that
I assume you don't have to shift out of first gear.
probably not. Not
First
with
gear at
13,500
13.5
RPM.
is going to
Yeah.
be 60 miles an
60
hour.
miles an hour, yeah. What I'm hoping is that we can add enough tubing to the bike so that if we were to abandon ship mid-bad decision, that the bike wouldn't remove parts of itself.
It needs a suicide shift too.
Do you want to do the full loop that you can actually do
Let's
a
just put
360?
a sphere around it.
Yeah.
Let's just put a whole fucking sphere around it. So all you got to do is strap into the bike,
Right.
You do a stop,
and then you do a
360.
wheelie, and you blow it, and it just rolls like a hamster ball.
Yeah,
That's
there
the
it is.
8:30 at Saturday Mid Ohio bike.
Oh, is that really?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah, that's-
8:30 at Saturday.
yeah.
This
Yeah,
is. You want to go to the Mexican restaurant? Oh wait, watch this.
Yeah, you're good.
Bring the hamster bike.
Yeah.
It is the hamster.
I'm
ball.
there. I'm back.
I'm back.
I'm there. I'm back.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, with this kind of power and with this kind of capabilities, it would be completely normal to build a Street Fighter out of it.
Oh yeah.
But that is completely not cool.
But to redefine what a Street Fighter is right now, and like use all of our opinions to decide that would be really cool.
I was thinking about building something wildly impractical, like a sphere. Well,
I just think knobbies need to be
you've
applied
seen
to
Wall
this.
of Death.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Ball of Death.
Ball of Death.
I'm thinking
Thinking
Ball
a
of Death.
lazy boy on it.
Lazy
Oh,
boy.
no.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
If you're gonna go the sphere
163
route,
mile an hour lazy
if you're
boy.
gonna go the sphere route, we have to design bowling pins, and then it just has to become a human bowling
Sure.
machine.
Well, you get a big. You know what? You get a 4x8 sheet of plywood, paint it. You know, cut a bowling pin out of it.
Yeah.
Not a bowling pin.
Not a bullet.
Not a bowling pin. Right. Stack them up, not a bowling pin. And your job is you ride at the pins, grab the front brake, and
just go
take
at
out
it.
as many pins as you can take out.
I'm in.
I think a sphere is calling to me.
Yep, not a sphere.
If this was a trike, then yes, and because I've seen that, and that actually works pretty well.
Right.
This
Right?
needs-
No, I've seen two-wheelers do it all the time.
Okay.
Little 110s, they always had the balls.
No, they're going, but they're a wheel. I'm thinking
Sphere. No, I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I'm saying like the wheel worked.
Yeah.
So a sphere is just adding like drunken stupidity.
Yeah, we're
to it.
adding
Yeah.
Z-axis. to
Yeah,
the
like
whole
you
thing.
didn't
Yeah.
quite hit the straight on
Right.
stoppy.
Right.
And so
well,
now
I
you're
think a
rolling
straight on
sideways.
stoppy is far too much for any of us to achieve.
Yeah.
I think that the likelihood of this going pear-shaped is pretty much
Yeah, right.
given.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
there's that, yeah. No,
So I'm thinking that we do a sphere,
Hmm?
and then the only thing that's not part of the sphere are the two contact patches of the tires. And so it'll be a lumpy sphere.
right.
So at some point the sphere will be stable. The odds of getting it back on its two wheels again are totally improbable.
Well, the thing that's given me really excitement about this whole thing
Yeah.
is the fact that there's welding involved.
Yeah.
And so that means that I'm going to be able to build my mini bike because there'll be welding going on. So now I'll be like,
But
bring that back.
I was thinking sphere.
There won't be any good welding going on. That's all I'm
There
telling you.
won't. But I was trying to picture, like, can we get a ball of death
Oh, yeah.
from somewhere already?
You'll need a slip roll if you're going to just use tubing. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Yes.
which isn't too hard. You know, like it just.
Or what about just wearing one of those, like, inflatable suits?
Oh, sumo suit.
No, the ball. Like, you ever see the guys that play soccer?
The soccer things, yeah.
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
big,
you
thick
grab
ball.
them.
Right.
You just somehow incorporate that into the bike.
But inflatable in AMA Vintage Days doesn't work because we're very stabby.
Yeah, you're right.
Everything
yeah.
we do
Everything's
Yeah,
stabby.
is
Lots
super
of-
stabby.
That's
Like
true.
everything you wear is stabby.
Yeah, it's
Vintage gravel is
very
stabby.
yeah,
But yeah, I was trying to think of some way that we could do something
and be light enough that it wouldn't be like
out of it.
horrible, but
Yeah.
still, yeah, it can happen.
What would the diameter of the sphere be?
It would have to be
The bike cubed.
10. No, it would have to be. It would have to be. I think the total diameter, in order for it to do a good loop, the bike's wheelbase would have to be.
times pi.
Well, because if it's too big, then you'll
10
get the weight of the bike would offset it
Yes,
too
it
much.
will.
I think.
Right.
Yeah.
But that would be cool.
Right. So the wheelbase is going to be this long.
Yeah.
So the tube, so it's going to have a flat spot.
Right. It has to have
Which
a
is
flat
fine.
spot there. So if your fingers are the wheelbase, then we'd want to go out beyond that to here
That's
and
huge.
to here.
That's,
And that's huge. That's what I was saying. A 10-foot
30
diameter
feet.
sphere. Yeah. A
That's
10-foot diameter sphere
That seems reasonable.
seems reasonable.
well, that 10-foot diameter
I
is not
think-
too bad. That's 4 feet above your head.
Right,
If you're standing up on the
No,
bike,
but you
and you're a
guys are
6-foot
thinking of this
person.
wrong. You're thinking of this wrong because the front and back wheel could be sticking out from the sphere, and it's not going to stop you from doing dumb shit.
You're
not,
right.
Not
That's
like
true.
too
You're right.
much.
You're right.
It could be like if the sphere came here and
Yeah.
the front wheel was out like
Do you know
that.
the carny ride that has the Ferris wheel, but each little car spins independently?
Right.
And spins? I was thinking something like that, but a little bit bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it wouldn't have to be ridiculously big.
Right.
Like if you look at the guys that have done the wheels,
Yeah.
they're not that huge. They're like an 8-foot
Yeah, it's 8
wheel,
foot. Yeah, 8
right.
foot circumference, yeah.
and it works. So if you just did another one this way and then
Right.
continued them this way
Yeah,
and that way,
just kept welding in circles until
So
you're
it's
there.
not going to be. It's
Right.
not. You're not going to roll 16 times down the thing without
No.
hitting your wheels or anything. But considering that we would never get it straight enough to do that, you're going
Right.
to roll sideways
Exactly.
and you just be like thump,
Yeah.
thump, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a sphere? It is a sphere.
Yeah, I've seen
And
that
that's
one.
on the ATV.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's pretty much a roly-poly. And he does get it up, and that
You
sphere is...
can hit the brakes and go forward.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
do whatever you want. You can go
And the weight
really hard
yeah,
this way and roll
the
forward
shape
that
and the
way.
weight helps
Yeah.
you to do the sideways.
And that, by the way, that is perfect AMA shenanigans bullshit right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that is exactly what it needs to be.
A trike with a ball of death around it.
That is
Yeah.
exactly what that needs to be. That particular device, and what is that? What is that? You read the name of that YouTube video, so our
Honda ATC roll cage.
roll cage.
Roll.
Roll
Oh,
cage.
yeah.
ROLLLL.
Oh, and he can even do a little assist where if it's kind of stuck this
You
way,
put
just
his hands
push
out.
on the
Yeah.
ground and
Yeah.
it'll roll.
Okay. So that obviously is
Take a
somebody's
stick with you so you can write yourself.
pushing the stick.
But to the root of this whole conversation, so this has only been a month since AMA Vintage Days,
Right.
and all of us are already planning next year.
Yes.
Like I have no money and I'm
It's a sign of a
saving
good
for
event.
Here's what
something.
happens. We talk,
Right.
and we talk,
and nothing happens.
and we talk,
Right.
and then about and our lives are busy.
Right. And a week before AMA,
And a week before, we're like, holy shit, it's next week.
I gotta build.
Fuck.
I gotta build a trailer out of a.
I get it.
I gotta build a trailer out of a.
You guys can
fucking
say what you
wheelbarrow.
want. I have plans. I have I have plans for next year. I'm taking things with me. I
We're
have a
with you.
3-bike
I'm with
trailer.
Cinch.
I'm taking shit there next year.
But we do have to find a good use for an otherwise disposable.
Look, when
111
that motherfucker
horsepower
runs and is
motorcycle.
rideable,
Yeah.
it's already got good use.
Oh no,
Yeah.
we haven't achieved that point yet.
It'll grow.
It'll grow. Right.
It'll be modified
Yeah.
in situ.
I think the first thing we should do is reduce it.
Yeah.
Reduce it down to the basic core elements.
Yes.
There's no reason not to do that.
Right. And so take it down to something that is just the absolute minimum of a thing that it can be. I mean, I want it to still have 17-inch wheels. I want it to still be a usable thing.
But we have to spend zero money doing it.
Oh no, we can only take money off of it. Right.
Sell everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
It has to get rid of the clip-ons and
Right.
put some dirt bike bars on it, so we can actually ride it. Because all our old asses can't lean over
That's
enough
true.
to ride a dirt
That's
bike.
absolutely
or I mean,
true. Yeah.
a sport
As long
bike.
as that's free.
Yep.
And-
Right. And I'm going to think that we're going to have to harvest some of the gut piles we have laying around here.
Mm-hmm.
And all 4 turn signals may not match,
Right.
but that's
I've
tasteful.
got lots of turn signals that I can throw at this.
And he made a thing that we could use LEDs.
Well,
So,
and we can also just put LEDs. We can glue LEDs to it.
everywhere.
No, I've got some CB750 from 1974. About like
Big,
this big.
old industrial.
High
the
plate LEDs.
Volkswagen does. It's a short wheelbase Volkswagen that they've made into a roller as well. That thing bounces a wicked
Wow.
bounce
Yeah, I
on the
know.
exit. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are no shock absorbers on that at all. They probably had to take the shock absorbers out to make it bounce enough
Yep.
to do the roll.
I saw the video of him making that.
Oh yeah, it's
He
part of the.
cut it and weld it. Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty about
That's
front wheel
crazy.
drive is
Yep.
that wheelbase is no longer a critical factor at all. But yeah, I would like to do something stupid fun with it. Since, look, it'd be one thing to cut up a CT90. It'd be another thing to cut up a very prized piece of. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's a GSX-R.
Right.
It is the scalpel. It is the
Yeah, that was a
the
good bike.
fucking high fruit of all high fruit, and we should disrespect it as much as humanly possible.
I just like the apocalypse. You said knobbies on the tires.
Yeah,
I like the
yeah,
apocalypto bike. Like
Yeah.
War bike.
Yeah,
I mean, if the thing has, if you're going into this with the concept that it's going to be a mid-Ohio bike,
right.
just keep that in mind.
Right.
So we all know.
We've all been there enough
yeah.
to know.
And you know that there's all kinds of like it needs to have airbags on it. Not for you, but for when other people hit you.
What if you put the
Bounce them
BW
off.
tires?
Oh, a jack shaft and some. Oh, dude. Nah, that's
And you
that's
can
too
do that
much.
with 20 horsepower. You don't want to waste
Yeah,
111
yeah,
horsepower.
yeah.
on
Oh,
that.
that's true.
The only thing I want to do with the drivetrain is
Yeah.
put a bigger sprocket on
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
it. Gear it down.
Right. Yeah. So that you don't need to be 10,000 RPM.
If you want to spray gravel from here to
Yeah, that's
if
kind
you
of.
want to
Yeah.
nurse
We're
it, if
never
you
going
want
to go 100. What did you say the top speed was? 175 miles per hour?
163.
163 miles per hour?
If you wanna
we
cruise-
need to take 100 off of that.
If you want to cruise it around at an idle, it'll just loper. It'll.
Right.
But we want to do 0 to 60 in 3
100
seconds,
off
right?
of that through sprockets alone.
If we put the ball on it,
Can
and
the
we- and
sprocket
we
be
do-
bigger than the tire?
And we if you do the sprocket and
I've
the
seen
cage,
that.
you can do a backflip.
Well, yes, you're right. Absolutely, yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen stunt bikes where they really had no lean angle because the rear sprocket was so
fucking
big.
long.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the thing. I'm thinking, if the bike goes 70 miles an hour, that's more than enough.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. For Mid-Ohio purposes, it is really all about the...
Yeah.
We want the front. We want it to be a.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing, too, is it might not hurt to have a 7-foot wheelie bar
I know somebody
with a
with
shock absorber in it.
You know, John
So that we can
gave
do a
Bruce
gradual-
the wheelie bar.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We can make a wheelie
I can
bar.
make a wheelie bar, yeah. And with an adjustable suspension in the wheelie bar, so we can dial
So
in the
let you
resistance.
kinda- yeah.
So you can be like, look, I want to do a wheelie for a week.
Yeah. Has anybody ever made a fork? This is kind of like a telescoping fork where when you do a wheelie, the front wheel stays on the ground, but the bike comes up, it still comes down and has suspension.
You're not even
So, like,
actually
so
doing
just
a
kinda
wheelie.
look-
Like,
Yeah,
it
it's
just kind of
just
comes
kinda
up and comes down, and then
That's intriguing.
You're going from
That's intriguing.
You're going from a sport bike to a chopper.
Yeah,
Sport bike
chopper,
to
just like a little bit up and
It's like
down.
one of those cheap telescoping ladders.
yeah, totally.
So you just take a cheap
Yes.
telescoping lighter.
It's called a
ladder.
1978 XS750
Oh,
Yeah.
with shaft drive and these big long fork
Super long
tubes.
fork tubes.
And every time you hit it, you're like, oh,
Oh, the front wheel never came off the
it
ground.
doesn't come off the ground, but there was a lot of travel,
Yes,
a lot of shaft jack,
20 degrees of travel.
and it was like every time you hit the gate, you're like, whoop, and then you let off.
So the headlight would go to Mars,
Yeah.
and then ants, and then Mars, and then ants.
CX500s are like that, you know, with if they're clapped out.
Super long travel on those.
All right, if you're going to do the now you got me all this wheelie thing and stuff, right? So the
Yeah.
headlight, we have to weight it and put it on a swivel.
Oh, yes, so
that it always stays
always
straight.
aimed at the right
Yeah,
angle. That's
yeah.
not the worst idea.
The pendulum headlight.
Yeah,
Pendulum
pendulum
headlight. Yeah, but I do think that in the spirit of Mid Ohio,
It's funny. Earlier today, I was thinking of Mid Ohio builds, and I was
Well,
like, I want to build like a tall bike, like take a dirt bike,
right?
but add
A tall dirt bike.
well, like it's already got a lot of clearance,
Yes, it
but
does.
weld an extra piece of pipe or
I'll just weld another dirt bike to it.
Oh, no.
Because that's
just,
how tall bikes
Just
are, yeah.
really over exaggerate the suspension. Like,
Yeah.
take the fork tubes out and
Right.
put an adapter that you add another 2 feet to the
Yeah.
front.
Okay, all right.
And then somehow, like, do an extended swing arm and add,
Right.
like, another 2 feet to the rear. So you're like, dirt bike, but you got to climb up on, not a double bike, not a.
That's brilliant because
Like the-
people
like
that were
the
going to hate
bicycle
you can
at,
just go underneath.
Kevin's-
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
It'd be great.
I think that's a
That's not a GSXR. though.
No.
I was also thinking about the GSXR that is the power unit for a system of like a trailer like hauls many people and many beers and many
That's the float, basically.
right. It's a float, right? It's a float, and that is the power unit for the float. So we just have like okay,
The back half of the bike goes
Right.
on the back of this float.
Yes.
The front half is
yes,
maybe a car,
right,
Maybe
maybe
a
a car,
fucking
maybe anything,
wagon,
right? Exactly,
maybe a
can be anything it needs
quad
to be.
runner,
Right?
front end,
Yeah,
whatever.
and
like-
that's I was kind of heading on that path too.
The only hiccup I see with that
Yeah.
is that then you're going to be surrounded by people that you don't want to be around more than 5 minutes, and they're just going to be
Yeah.
there at all times.
What are you talking about? I just spent like 2 hours with you.
That's true. That's true.
Pull the pin, leave them all
Yeah,
behind.
yeah.
Drive out.
I have an 84 XR 200 chassis with
Okay.
a Vermont title.
Yeah.
That we
How
could
about
put
more
this
like a
engine
metal
in.
picnic table is what I'm thinking.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
if he's got an XR 200 chassis, all he needs is the Pull Start 440.
Oh, that's true. That's
Snowmobile
true.
motor.
Look, I want all this when you're done
Yeah,
with
that's
it,
what
and
I'm
I want to
saying.
put it in that Super Hawk frame.
The Super Hawk with a GSXR motor might be kind of sexy.
Just saying.
Just saying. So how much of this? Wait, you just take the GSXR,
The whole
and just-
wiring harness.
and just leave it where it is, because it's perfect, and then you just add Super Hawk parts to it.
No,
Because
it's gonna
that's
be more
better. That's better than what's going to happen if you try to take the wiring harness out of the GSXR and the motor out of the GSXR.
It's probably not a good idea.
What Japan has put together, let no man separate.
How much fab? But seriously, how much fab would that? Because like basically on the GSXR and any sport bike in the last 15 years, the motor is a stressed member of
Yes,
the
it is,
frame.
right.
So
And
now you're
so
trying to.
is the Super Hawk.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Because it's a two like that. Okay. Yeah.
It is.
It'd be interesting though. That wouldn't be an afternoon.
That would
Swap.
that actually has been done with the Hornet 250 motor. I saw
okay.
one where they took a modern Hornet 250 inline liquid cooled
Right.
4-cylinder motor and put it in a Super Hawk.
Yeah.
But that's a 250, so it's a lot more.
250, very
Economy
tiny,
of scale.
very tiny. Yeah. This I was looking at this GSXR today.
But I bet
the motor's real small.
I was going to say, I bet
Yeah.
a 600 and a 250
Yeah.
probably isn't a big difference.
I
in
was
size.
kind of surprised at how tiny the motor was when I really get to look at it, and it is liquid cooled as a motherfucker. So there's a fair amount of plumbing involved.
Let me ask you
So-
this too. So when you get to 600 cc's, you can obviously go different ways. You can have a fatter cylinder or a longer stroke or whatever, right? So which way does it go? The cylinder's probably pretty tiny. Right?
I'm pretty sure this is
I think
a very
most of
short
those
stroke
bikes,
motor.
I thought they're mostly
Over-squared.
No, I was going to say square, but
Yeah,
okay.
square. Yeah, square.
All right.
Yeah, I would think so because they spin to 13,500 RPM.
Right.
You know,
right,
they're they just spin like crazy.
And spin some more.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a thing waiting for us here. If this, I pretty much have locked the bike in right now.
Is there anything you can do like right now to call somebody? Like, I mean,
What's that?
when we're just sitting around here sucking our thumbs, we could be working on this thing.
Well, no.
Like,
I
do
gotta-
it now.
I got to get the bike out of a certain backyard, And then there's a title. Like you said.
And you have to cut down a tree to get the bike out?
No, I don't have to cut a tree. We don't
Well,
have to cut
the
tree down to
title
get the
doesn't
bike
sound
out.
that important if the goal is Mid-Ohio, because...
But no. In the sake of prying it from the hands of its current owner, there's going to have to be a certain amount of formality.
Okay. All right.
You know what I'm saying? If I go over there and just be like, I don't care about the title, just give me the bike, then they're going to know they're getting ripped off. We want... Yeah.
So is that going to be the punishment bike on the
Mid-Atlantic
bad ideas?
I think our Mid-Atlantic bad decisions are out due to the fact that everyone sitting around the table has jobs. There's no way that we can commit to 5 or 6 or 7 days.
I'm doing it. I am doing something.
Of riding these miles. But what I was thinking is instead is Hoffert has a house, a beach house.
He's there now.
In the Adirondacks.
Yeah.
And that seems like a better place. What's that?
Speculator,
New York. And that seems like a better thing for us to take a 2 or 3 day weekend.
And
go out there.
I'm all over that like a seagull on a French fry.
Yes,
as long as we
exactly.
ride there, as long as I can say that I spent 4 days on my motorcycle.
Right, and you're going to absolutely be able to do that.
All right.
And I think that's a much better idea than for us to...
I'll be driving a vehicle with my motorcycle trailered or hauled behind it.
To take a week off of work.
That's fine. That's all good.
I'm not riding
to ride from ambiguous point A to ambiguous point B, and then back to that point. The more that I looked at it, and the more that I talked to people around here that do have jobs, they just don't have the kind of vacation days to go
It's going to be rough.
fuck off for 8 days. You know,
But a 3 day weekend still
but a
doable.
3 day weekend is doable. Yeah. So,
But we could go to the Alleghenies for a Saturday, Sunday on inappropriate bikes and ride the trails there for $20.
I'm going to take an entirely appropriate bike.
and I do think that.
But I'm all for that.
Yeah,
I am all for that.
But I think that the biggest thing for us is going to be like in the idea of a September, October trip, of just being able to get out, and the fact that Steve has the property is fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's so cool that we'll be able to go out and use that. It's really cool. We need to work on finding somebody in our sphere of influence that has something like 13 acres or more that we can use for a weekend. Because
I got that. We're going to build a mini bike track next year on 13 acres. We're going to do a flat track mini bike. We're going to try to do it this year, but it's too rushed.
Well, here's why I'm saying. Because we've given Mods versus Rockers a year off to heal. But
I got guys.
we have to start planning for next year.
Okay. What do you need? Just campground?
A weekend campsite.
All right, we got that.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
A weekend
I got,
campsite.
I got
We
several
need a-
dudes.
We need a place where we can land 50 to 100 motorcycles, pitch tents, and have a real nice overnighter so people can ride to the destination and then drink themselves stupid
With a
and not have to
600-foot
ride home.
bonfire. And then
What's that?
600-foot bonfire, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 200-foot bonfires.
Okay,
Probably
that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Right. Don't want to blow it all in one
Whatever
load.
bonfires happen.
We know where to get all the pallets we want for free. So so that will regulate the size of the bonfire.
Speculator is 7 hours, 2 minutes.
7 hours, 7 hour drive from here. Yeah, Speculator. So that's a good day ride. Yeah.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah,
Let's
that
do
sounds. I mean, that sounds like a decent trip for us. Aside from that, man, yeah, I think that's a good autumn ride for us.
Yeah.
I think that's a good. What's
Well,
that?
We also have to do, I think coming up, now that the weather's getting interesting, we should do some weekend, like, couple hour things once in a while and get people interested in doing something. I think we need to do more of that.
My Sundays are pretty good.
Yeah.
My Saturdays are busy, but my Saturdays are kind of taken up. But Sundays are fine. What I would like to see is in any motorcycle community, we're doing a pretty good job with our Thursday night events. So we've got our coming up August 23rd. If you listen to our podcast, we're going to be having pints. What did she call her
Pistons
event?
and Pints?
At, the one at Prosperity.
Oh, yeah.
It's called the Roundup.
Two-wheel roundup.
Two-wheel Roundup.
Yep.
And so, the two-wheel roundup, which is going to be August 23rd. So, if you're listening to this podcast, it'll be, less than a week away.
Also, in
And
this...
she does an amazing $10 steak dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that can't be beat for $10.
That weekend
It's
also...
like a sore dick. You can't
Bonnie,
beat it.
yeah, she does that one.
Also that weekend, if anybody's interested, I was going to go the whole weekend, but I don't know if I want to do the whole weekend. But Moto America is coming to Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh International Raceway, which is about 2.5 hours from here. and you have some of the best road racers. Basically, the MotoGP of America is happening there, and it's only 2 hours away. So I think it's pretty cheap to go one day. It's like $25. So I was thinking maybe take a ride out, do the back roads on a Sunday or a Saturday.
And it's a beautiful racetrack. I mean, it's got everything you need.
I went there last year, and they, like, compared to like Mid-Ohio or places like that with the races going on, you can walk wherever. You can walk into the pits. You can hang out with the racers. Like,
it's wide open.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that
event's coming up, and that roundup. And then this weekend, if you're into a short plan, I know Nemeth's, which is in Painesville, that we've done some two-wheel events there, is doing Pistons and Pints on Sunday. So they haven't done one in a while.
And you know what tomorrow is, too?
What is tomorrow? Saturday,
Cycle Circus.
Circus?
It's like a Nitro Circus ripoff, but it's in Painesville or something, or
Really?
somewhere over there.
Yeah.
But they have dudes, like there's like, I guess there's like 20 different like freestyle motocross guys, mountain bike guys, and then strippers. And they put it all together, and so apparently I watched this
Somebody
video.
Google this immediately.
I watched
Where
this
is
video.
This event?
They hang giant balloons with glitter in them, and these dudes are doing backflips and hitting the balloons with their back tires, which spread the glitter out into the air, and then fall on the fire blowing strippers that are on top of the dirt jumps. So
Wait.
this is happening tomorrow night.
They're go-go dancers.
Go dancers. I disrespected
yeah.
them. I'm sorry. Yes.
I don't.
But if you give them a nice enough tip, you
Right.
might,
So it's
Just the tip.
just a
It's the
tip.
largest FMX freestyle entertainment show of its kind in the world
right. And it's
today.
and it's happening tomorrow. Kids under 10 are free. Because I was thinking about to take my daughter if I could.
Flat out freestyle. And you know what? You know they're good because the very first sponsor is from Circus Freaks Motorcycle Club in Sarasota, Florida, who is the most juggalo ICP clown looking you're ever going to see. That is an extremely juggalo ICP looking clown.
How do they spell freaks? Is it?
They did actually spell it right. I got to give them credit. They didn't.
But they have videos up, and these guys are like, it's not like you're not getting like the half sell. You're not getting guys that are like, hey, I can do a tail whip. You know, like that. These guys are doing double flips, and it's pretty interesting, man.
Yeah, you're right. And there are many, many ladies applying angle grinders to their metallic clothing. What for the making of the sparks and whatnot. Wow, I got to give you credit. That's pretty cool. It's Johnny Rockets. Cycle
Johnny
Circus
Rockets.
Live.
That's it. That's him.
Live. We'll
and his lady, who is like Miss. It's always a Miss. It's Miss like
Miss Flamethrower.
Yeah,
Miss Castor Oil.
Miss Fire Crotch, something like that. Like she's like whatever, but she's also like, and they all have slashes. So it's not just like MC.
Right.
It's like MC, Fire Thrower, Grinder, Dominatrix, Aerialist. Something like they all have, yeah.
Slashy, slash, and slash.
Aerialist.
Aerialist. That's it.
I would love to tell you. I am
balloons
trying to
and
navigate
shit.
their website right now, and the only thing that I am lacking thus far is an address.
Yeah, no, it's their website's awful, and it really pissed me off because I was trying to figure out where they're going to be.
Right.
You have to
I
go
am
to
too.
Facebook. You have to go to Facebook and enter the same thing, and then it tells you
Really?
where it's happening, which is.
Yeah, I was going to say their website itself has nothing in the way of an address
and
on it.
and the website has stuff like tour and all this, and you hit tour and it doesn't tell you shit.
No.
This kid just did a somersault on his motorcycle in midair.
Yeah,
A somersault.
A somersault.
Well, I mean, okay. Yeah. I mean,
Like, no, the bike didn't somersault.
oh, no, he did a
He
somersault.
somersaulted on the bike.
Check. I was.
yeah. No, those guys are legit.
Yeah, I was getting that wrong. All right.
The bike is here,
Yeah,
going through
okay.
there. He does a somersault on the
It's
bike and then
the
grabs
Globe
the bike.
of Death. The Globe of Death.
Lake Erie Speedway. Here it is.
Lake Erie
Cycle
Speedway.
Circus Live. Witness the largest freestyle motorcycle entertainment show of its kind. 10 kids 10 and under free. Saturday. Yep, Saturday, August 18th at 7 p.m. Cycle Circus Live flies into the 2018 season, fueled by Quick Fill. See Freestyle Motocross, Freestyle BMX, Live Daredevils, Divas, Globe of Death, Cybertrons, and much more.
Cybertron? I don't even know what that is. But I like the
Sounds
sound of it.
amazing.
Cybertron.
I've got a Cybertron. Do you have a Cybertron?
Shop now. Let's shop now and find out how much this is. This is
I have no idea. But I
Okay,
can
hold
tell
on.
you that
Cycle Circus Live. That's what we want.
3
Buy
monthly
tickets.
payments.
Isn't that where Transformers come from?
it is.
Cybertron?
Cybertron, yep.
Price tier. You can be blue for $30 or orange for $20.
I want to be blue.
I'm going to go with the orange.
Well, let me tell you, folks. Yeah, it's okay. All right. I
And
got
rain
it.
date. They even have a rain date. If it rains tomorrow, that'll
It
be
is
there on
going to rain
Sunday.
tomorrow, by the way.
Well, then they'll be there on Sunday.
Okay. All right.
So there you go.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's the thing.
So speaking of circuses, we can circle back to the things that took over the road, the people, the motorcycles that took over the road in Cleveland.
We're talking about the youths, the exuberant youths that took over the roads of Cleveland on their lightly stolen, well, assumedly stolen, but certainly not license plated, dirt bikes. And
We had an
quads.
episode of Riding Dirty.
Riding dirty.
Unless, of course, you're a mayor who believes that they are all 100% legit. All they're looking for is a parking lot downtown to ride and
They
do
have
nuts
one.
in.
They're using it.
Funny enough, they had that all set up in the parking lot, the Muni lot.
Yeah,
They were doing that like last weekend.
we saw them. Yeah,
And then the very following weekend,
right. And there were about 14 people in the Muni lot doing wheelies and whatnot on asphalt.
Right.
And then there were, like I said, 145, 135 people
Yeah.
riding dirty through the neighborhoods.
From the east side of Cleveland to
all the way to the west.
the west side of
Big
Cleveland.
old ride.
Yeah.
Big old ride. Probably had a
And
gas
terrorizing people, like through front yards, kids in minivans, moms, dads at stoplights, getting
stop.
almost
One of the
hit.
YouTube videos was a cop, a citizen, pulled up to one of Bay Village's finest.
Yep.
And said,
What the hell are you doing?
What are you doing? How come you're not arresting these people?
Right.
And the cop said, "Get back in traffic, sir. Get back in your lane, sir. Get back in your lane." He says, "No, what the hell are you doing to stop this?"
And the best was the cop
And the
said,
cop was
"What
like,
do you want me to do?"
want me to do?
Yeah.
Lakewood got
Yeah.
5.
Lakewood got 5.
Well,
Lakewood
one
Cheesesteak.
crashed. One crashed
Yeah.
hard, and then got him, and then the other
Yeah.
4 they stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Lakewood
internet.
got 5.
The internet erupted with what would you do, or I would do this, and so many people said I would run a cable up between tree A and tree B.
Right.
You know, fishing line,
you
piano
can't do
wire,
that.
whatever. And I was like, come on, guys. I mean,
That's
that's
not-
bullshit.
You don't want to murder anybody.
You don't want to
right?
murder anybody. And realistically, the total impact of this is you got to hear whack, 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 whack. So it sounded like mid-Ohio for 25 minutes in your neighborhood. You know?
But they're promoting it like they're doing. So, and this is coming from an idiot that used to be involved in the squid
there any
situation.
reason?
It's bike life.
But it's not a protest of
See,
anything.
the bike
It's not
life guy, I
activism.
looked into him a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think he's relatively, he's more about like giving kids something to do because
Right.
they need something to do so they don't
So
gang
he's putting
bang.
a wholesome spin on
He,
it.
I think, is a more of a wholesome kind of guy.
Well, he's trying because
who was trying to like run a garage and help fix these kids' bikes and stuff
Okay.
and give them something to,
All right.
you know, to do. But
But in his videos, he also lets guys say, like, I grew up, I just walked to people's houses, took their bikes, and that's what I rode, and when I wrecked them, and blah, blah, blah.
so he's got a Facebook presence,
Right.
and you can then just go on there and look at all the people who have liked or commented on his stuff, and
Right.
you follow those off. And you, I
Right.
mean, it really, you could crack this. You could find these.
Well,
you
that's the
could-
thing. So, like, if you go to YouTube right now, every day he's released a new Cleveland video.
Okay.
It's documenting the whole ride.
Okay.
The entire ride.
Right.
And nobody's wearing face masks except for 2 people. The rest of
Okay.
everybody is there. There's guys, there's this white dude that's like Mr. Cool Guy, and he has his motorcycle decked out in like 216 and a website and an Instagram handle and all this stuff on his graphics.
Very,
and
very
he's
fine.
being featured in the video. So if I was a cop and I looked at this video and this dude's, the funny part was he was by Whole Foods on Richmond Road or whatever where I live,
Yeah.
and he's like wheeling past all this stuff, and I'd be
Right.
like, okay, there's your Instagram handle, there's you, I have you doing it.
Right.
Why not just spend 5 minutes and say, hey, dude, come in, we're talking to you right now.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I'm not saying like, you know, like I get it. I used to like wheelies, I used to do all this stuff
Yeah.
and everything, but they're shutting down like the most wheelies. A lot of times back in the day, it would be on the highway. It
Right.
would be late at night.
You
and do
never
stuff.
went the wrong way in traffic.
I never went the wrong way on traffic. No, I didn't.
You never generally ran through intersections
No.
without giving it any thought.
No, and I was never good enough to do this, but the guys
You
that were
may
good.
have, were on your worst day, went out on the highway, lined up some bikes to hold traffic, and spread it. Gave yourself a range out ahead to do. Some guys could go out and do wheelies.
Yeah, do wheelies, do whatever.
You
And if somebody
interfered
wrecked,
lightly.
and somebody wrecked the whole. It was like you know how they have like the autonomous drones now that work
Yes.
together. It was like all the bikers were autonomous drones, and when one dude went down, they all kind of spaced traffic out to move him around the guy that fell.
Yeah, you
get the
provide
bike
your own
off,
traffic
yeah, whatever.
control,
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm not saying it was any better,
Right.
and I'm not saying it was great, but this is attacking like suburbs. This is attacking like places that like and they go from.
I believe you are correct. I believe you when you say that because why did they come all the way over to Lakewood, Rocky River, Bay
right.
Village? Like that was a
They're
statement.
taunting, and
They're
the
making
thing,
a statement.
and you can hear the guys like since they released these new videos, and there's more and more videos coming up. You can hear the guys saying, and there's some positive stuff to like it's all about I don't care what you ride, if it's a 4-wheel, 2-wheel. So they have like a good like they're motorcycle enthusiasts. I'm not taking that away from them. But then they're like, I think they're going to cities where the police have already said that they don't have a chase policy.
Correct.
So they're basically like putting their fingers up in the thing saying like, you're not going to chase us, we're going to fuck with you.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to.
That's where we're going to ride.
Yeah, and you see that in the videos in Lakewood and stuff when the cop car is following, but he's not following. He's in the middle.
He's in the middle lane
of 130 motorcycles wheeling and giving them the finger and slapping the cop car and all this stuff. And like,
Yeah, I'm gonna say, I'm. You know what? If you want to be around me and be like, yeah, man, it's cool, that's cool. But when the thumbs turn into fingers,
yeah,
or when you start slapping my shit, or if the moment where I go, you are actually, if I got out of the car right now, you might try to kick my ass.
Yeah.
Then I might go, all right, this has now turned into an aggression. I'm supposed to be here, you're not.
right.
I'm on duty, you're not. I'm doing my job, serving and protecting, and you're not. So if you give me a thumbs up and, hey, cop, how you doing? We're just doing our stupid thing. We'll be out. Really? Rick rolled!
Like, wait a minute. And then everybody, there was all these comments like, well, how does this guy get off? And he seriously grew up in the United States. Why does he have a British accent? Nobody's explained it. He won't explain it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, the next one was like, how does this guy still have a job? He hasn't been in his office in like a month.
Checkers a bitch.
But all that aside, he had a really cool thing that stuck out 3 feet. Yeah.
On that, I will remind everybody to please ride fast and take chances. Bum, 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 bum.
Fucking press a button.